Hello, chat. We have started early today. um, Hi. We have started early because we're gonna do some learnings. All right. So it'll be a little bit different. We'll go into normal slam face against wall later. Okay. Right now, though, we're finding uh some learnings. Only the best of learnings. We're just gonna learn some code. It'll be great! Learning. True. What? I'm reading out the things that have happened in chat. It is very important. I need to stay on, like, point, alright? Chat is here for my reading of it. He's Malo Jaowi Sai Pu Apris. Yeah? Him Laura Kate. It has been so long since I spoke to you. Hello. Um Yeah. Hang on. I gotta I say set this up, but it's really just you know, the good stuff. I forgot I had like a live split thing. Just start speed running learning code on stream chat. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I need to make a new one. Display capture? Is it? No. Or is I think display capture does the whole thing. Yeah, just window. Hey, thank you, Irish. How's your day going? Are you kicking the butts, taking the names? Himlar Irish. Yeah. Hey, thank you. I'm just looking at your clip. 1 second, bud. That's the radio show stream? That's cool. How long have you been doing a radio show? Thanks, man. Yeah, no worries. How's coding? I'm literally just started. I'm learning. I'm learning. It's like interested me for quite a while. Been doing it for 2 years. Yo, that's cool. So I'm like baby coding at the moment, my friend. Gotta start somewhere. Good work. Oh, cheers. I have a few like things I want to try. We and coding seems to be like the best way to do it. That and it seems like pretty interesting. How long? Well, I assume that you've been coding as well, but what have you been doing? You don't know that stuff? Oh, fair. What were you doing today? You should learn to code if you want to, sure, bro. I can like put the link for this in chat if you do want to learn. It's like all free. Lots of people said that they've used like this to help like learn it and shit. Was Stalker Daisy RP in Road to North Daisy server? Oh, yo, how far did you get in there, bud? You love that server? Yeah. Does it have like extra things in it, my friend? I'm not all up to date with Daisy things, so I don't know if they've got mods. I assume so. Mostly showing your bro around the zone? Oh, yeah. It's like the GSC games, Stalker Call of Pride, yeah, and Daisy. Oh, okay, cool. Hell yeah, bud.
Just printing out in VS Code the hash symbol, let me do a little safety check here and print out the value of I. So let me go ahead and say something like I is, now I want to say I is this, but of course this is not how I print out the value of I. If I want to print out the value of I, what should I put here? So %i for integer instead of %s for string. So there's still placeholders, but we use %s for integers. And now if I want to print out I just need the comma as the second argument and then I. All right, let me go ahead and back to VS to my terminal window. Let me recompile the program because I've changed it. That still works fine. /buggy0. And now let me increase the size of my terminal window here. You just see some diagnostic information, if you will. Like, this is not the goal. This is not what you should be submitting for this homework problem were it 1. But it is helping us diagnostically know that, OK, when I is 0, here's a hash. When I is 1, here's a hash. When I is 2, here's a hash. When I is 3, here's a hash. Well, wait a minute. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So clearly, I'm printing it one too many times. So let me look back at the code here by shrinking my terminal window. And let me just ask the group, where is, in fact, the mistake? Or what equivalently would be the solution? Yeah, in the middle. Yeah, instead of less than or equal to, use just less than. So you got to kind of pick a lane here. Like, if you're going to start counting from 0, you generally use less than and go up to, but not through the value. Or if you prefer, like in the human world, counting from 1 on up, you can use less than or equal to, but you have to be consistent. And in general, as a programmer, just always start counting from 0 if you're doing something canonical like this. But the solution is indeed just to change this by changing the less than or equal to less than. If I compile this program with make buggy 0 and then do .buggy 0 again, and let me increase the size of my terminal window, now you see, OK, almost the same output, but indeed I starts at 0 and goes up to, but not through 3. All right, so printf, in short, can be.
What are you doing? How are you, kid? We're learning things, the codings things. We're gonna play Elden Rings again later, just currently learning all the things.
Your first diagnostic tool. Instead of just staring at the screen or raising your hand, I mean, use printf to see literally what's going on inside of your program by just printing out things of interest. And then once you've solved the problem, you can go back into your code, as I'll do here, by shrinking my terminal window. I'll delete the printf line, and now I'm ready to share this program with the world or submit it as homework or the like. It's just meant there to be temporary. Any questions on printf as a debugging tool? No? All right. Well, that only gets us so far. And honestly, as your programs grow and grow and grow, it's going to actually get really annoying to start going in and adding printfs, then removing them and figuring out if you've got multiple printfs, well, which one printed what. Like, it just gets messy eventually to rely on printf alone. So being computer scientists have written software to make it easier to debug code. That software is what we would generally call a debugger, which would be the second tool of the trade that you can use to actually solve problems in your code. Now, in the world of VS Code, there's actually a debugger built in. So the graphical user interface you're about to see in VS Code isn't specific to CS50. It actually comes with VS Code, and it supports C and C++ and Java and Python and lots of other languages too. But it's admittedly a little complicated to just start using the debugger. You have to like create a configuration file and do like some annoying steps that just get in the way of solving real problems. So we have automated the process for you of just starting the debugger. And thereafter, it's sort of industry standard how you use it, but we save you the headache of having to create those configuration files. So suppose I want to do this. Suppose I want to try to debug.
You're home early? Me? Buddy, it's a Sunday. What do you mean?
This program step by step using special software. Well, how can I do that? Well, let me propose that if I revert this back to the original version, where I was less than or equal to 3, I'm pretty sure that I was printing.
Early stream? Yeah, is the stream my home, is it? Is that what you're saying, Jim? What's the deal with that? I'm gonna be doing like early learning to code streams and eventually coding streams. Every now and then. We will be getting back to games and stuff. Around-ish normal time I would have started stream. But it'll be like sporadic, so like randomly some days I'll be getting in early and some days not.
Too many hashes. So I'm going to do this. And you might have done this accidentally or never at all. But notice if you hover over the gutter, so to speak, in VS Code, the part of it all the way to the left of the editor, you see this sort of grayed out red dot. If you click there, it becomes a brighter red dot. And this represents what we're going to call a breakpoint. And this is just a visual indicator that you've put like a stop sign equivalent there. And you're telling the debugger in a moment, stop running my code there. Why? Because I prefer to step through my code at sort of a human speed and not as computer speed, where it runs all at once. So I've set my breakpoint, which is step 1. And then step 2 is quite simply this. Instead of running the program itself, run a command called debug50, and then /buggy0. And now this will start your program, but inside of the debugger, which is a special program that smart people wrote that will empower you to now step through your code line by line at your own comfort pace. I'm going to hit enter. Some stuff's going to happen on the screen. Whoops. Notice this is a common mistake that I made accidentally here. Looks like I've changed my code. I did, because I went in and changed the less than or equal to sign. So let me go ahead and rerun make buggy0, enter. Good. Now let me rerun debug50, enter. And now some stuff just happened on the screen. And it takes a moment to get started. But once it's started, you'll see this. You'll still see your code, but you'll see this yellow highlight, which you've probably not seen before. And notice that it's specifically highlighting the same line that I set a breakpoint on. Why? That just means the program the debugger has executed all of these lines except for line 7. It has broken not in a bad way, but it has paused execution on line 7, so it hasn't yet printed any hashes. And you can see that. No hashes in the terminal window yet. It's paused execution. But what's interesting with the debugger is the stuff over here on the left-hand side. In the debugger here, you'll see under variables, all of your so-called local variables. And we haven't really made a distinction between local and something called global. But for now, local variables just means all of the variables that exist in your function. So I currently has a value of 0. OK, and that makes sense. So now how do I step through my code and see what it's doing? Well, at the top of the screen here, you'll see some playback icons, kind of like a video player, but they have special meaning. This first one will just play the rest of your program all the way to the end. So you only click that if you're sort of solved a problem and you just want to run it to completion like before. But the next 3, or next 2 really, are really the juiciest. The second one here, if you hover over it eventually, you'll see that it's called step over. Step over means that the debugger will run this currently highlighted line of code, but it's not going to dive into it. So if it's a function like printf, it's not going to start stepping through printf line by line. Why? Because I can pretty much assume printf written decades ago is correct. Problem's probably with me. But this next line, if I did really want to step into the printf code to figure out how it works or find some problem in it all these years later, you can step into printf, and then the screen would change, and you'd see each of the lines for printf line by line, at least if you have the source code for printf installed. All right, I'm going to use the first one, step over, and watch as the yellow highlight moves, and watch as in the terminal window there's a hash symbol. Here we go. There's one hash. Now notice line 5 is highlighted. That means it has paused on line 5. Line 5 has not yet been executed. So what does that mean? The value of I, per the top left-hand corner, is still 0. But as soon as I click step over again, watch what happens at the top left, where I is a variable on the screen. Now I, and it flashed briefly, has a value of 1. And now if I step over again, watch the terminal window. There's my second hash. Now let me click step over on the for loop. Watch the variable at top left. Now 1 goes to 2. Now let me click it again. Third hash. And here's where the logical error is perhaps revealed. Let me go ahead and step over the loop. Now I is 3. Wait a minute. I'm still going to print out a hash. Well, there it is. There's the 4th hash. And at this point, hopefully the light bulb proverbially has gone off. I realize, oh, I screwed up. I can either stop the program altogether with the red square, or I can just let it run all the way to the end, which just terminates everything. At this point, I just want to get back into my code and start fixing things. And you can close, for instance, as I will here, the File Explorer just to hide the panel that opened. So that's debug 50, but it's not a CS50 thing. That just starts the debugger for you, which is something you'd find in most any programming environment nowadays. Questions on debugging? Questions? Yeah? Good question. Where does it tell you where it went wrong? So sadly, it does not tell you any of that. The onus is still on you, the human, to use this tool productively to walk through your code at a saner pace. But your brain is the one that still needs to solve it. And I don't doubt down the line, with artificial intelligence and more, programs like this will get all the more helpful and start answering questions like that for us. And there are other tools we'll introduce you this semester that are even more powerful than this. But for now, it's just a tool really to slow things down and not have to change your code. The fact that I had that panel on the left that just showed me I's changing value is just an alternative to printf. And I can step through it a little more slowly. Other questions on debugging? No? Let me show you one final example with this debugger here. And this one, too, I wrote in advance. Let me close buggy0.c. And let me open up buggy1.c, my second version thereof. Let me close my terminal window for a second and give you a quick tour of this program, which similarly has a mistake. Now, at the top of this program, some familiar includes cs50.h and standardio.h. This is not something we've seen before. It's specific to this example, a function called getNegativeInt. Takes no arguments, and it returns an integer. What does it do? It literally gets a negative integer, ideally from the user. Fun fact, though, it doesn't correctly. That's the bug. getNegativeInt is broken at the moment. So what does main do? Well, main just calls this function, passing in nothing in parentheses, no inputs, and it stores the return value in I. And then it just prints out I on the screen. So honestly, just by eyeballing this, I feel comfortable enough with programming in C. I think main is correct. Let me just stipulate main is correct. But there is going to be a bug down here. Now, what's the bug down here? Well, let me look at getNegativeInt's implementation. Notice this first line, 12, is identical to the prototype up here. The prototype is sort of stupidly required up here because C reads things top to bottom, left to right. The compiler technically does. So if you reference get negative int here, but you don't implement it until down here, and you haven't told C in advance that it will exist, again, you get the error we saw last week. All right, so how does get negative int work? We declare a variable called n. We've got a do while loop that does what? It uses getInt, which comes with the CS50 library per last week. It prompts the user for negative integer, quote unquote, and stores the value in n. I then do all of this while n is less than 0. Right? Remember we used a do while loop last week to make sure the human cooperates and doesn't give us the wrong type of value, be it positive or negative or something else. And then we return n. And there's some subtleties. Anyone recall or have an intuition for why I've declared n on line 14 instead of on line 17? This is a C-specific thing.
If you declare it and you're returning outside of the outside of the system.
Exactly. There's this notion of scope in C, and we'll continue to see this over time, whereby a variable only exists inside of the most recent curly braces that you've opened. So if I've declared n here on line 14, I can use it anywhere between lines 13 and 21, because those are the nearest curly braces. If by contrast, as you note, if I instead said this, int n equals getInt and so forth, and didn't have the current line 14, well, n would exist inside of these curly braces, but not here, which is too late, and definitely not here. So you just have to declare it first and then use and reuse it as such. Now, let me just show you how I can debug this, but let me show you the symptoms first. Let me open my terminal window. Let me run make buggy1. Compiles OK, so it's not something silly like a semicolon, /buggy1, and I'm asked for a negative integer. All right, let me give it -1. Enter. Well, the main function is supposed to print out what I typed, but it clearly didn't. It's prompting me again. All right, so maybe it'll like -2. No, maybe -3. 50? OK, so it's definitely broken, right? It kind of seems logically to be doing the opposite. Now, you can perhaps see why this is happening already. These are deliberately simple programs for demonstration's sake. But let's do this. Let me go ahead and set a breakpoint in main, even though I'm pretty sure main is correct. But it just helps me start my thought process. Start with main and then take it from there. Let me run now debug50 /buggy1, enter. And let's see, with that breakpoint now, the GUI is going to reconfigure itself. It's going to pause on line 8, because that's the first interesting line inside of main. So I could have just put the breakpoint on line 8 too. It's smart enough to know that if I set it on 6, you really mean line 8, because that's the first actual line of code. And watch now what happens. If I step over this line, notice that I, which at the moment seems to have a default value of 0, more on that another time, but if I click step over, like before, I'm prompted for a negative integer. Let me type -1, enter. And now notice there's no additional yellow highlight. Why? Where am I currently stuck logically? Yeah, just logically, I must be in that do while loop. And even if you don't understand it, like that's the only explanation. If you keep getting prompted, surely there's a loop going on. There's only one loop in my code, so there's probably a problem there. So OK, I can't just set a breakpoint in main and then wait for this to work. So let me just let me stop this with the red square. And let me think, all right, instead of, I can still set my breakpoint in main, but let me rerun the debugger instead. And this time, not step over that line of code. Let me step into that line of code. So watch what happens now. Instead of clicking the second icon here, let me click the third, whose name is indeed step into. And watch as the yellow highlight does not move to line 9. It dives into line 8. The function on line 8, thereby bringing me whoosh down to line 17. It's kind of going down into that next function. Now, it didn't bother pausing on line 12 or 13 or 14, because there's nothing intellectually interesting there happening yet. The juicy part really starts, it would seem, in line 17. So now notice, n is my variable at the top left. If I click, I don't want to click step into now, though. What would go wrong if I click on step into? Or what would it do that I don't think I want to do? Yeah. Yeah, it would step into getInt, but I'd like to think that the staff's version of getInt is correct, and that's not our problem today. So I want to step over it. And watch now at top left that nothing happens yet to the value of n until I go to the terminal window now and type in something like -1. Now notice it jumps to line 19, which is the next interesting line. Top left, n indeed is -1. And here's where I can now pause as a human and think, all right, so while n is less than 0. All right, n per the top left corner is -1. So, all right, while -1 is less than 0, well, obviously that's true mathematically. So what's going to happen? It's a do-while loop. So when I click on step over again, it's going to go to this line because it's at the end of the inside of that loop. And now here, it's looping through again and again. All right, let me do this once more. I'm going to step over. All right, I'm going to type in -2, and it's the exact same thing. Now is my chance on the yellow line. OK, wait a minute. -2 is obviously less than 0. Let me try this one more time. Click it once here. And now, all right, let me give it 50. And now, OK, while 50 is less than 0, that's not true. So the loop is over, because it's not going to do it while 50 is less than 0. That's not true. So now watch, when I click step over once more, it then finishes the loop. Even though there's nothing more to do, it's now about to return n. It jumps back up to main, where I left off on line 9. It now prints in my terminal window the number 50. And hopefully at this point, to your question earlier, my human brain has realized, oh, I'm an idiot. Like, I flipped my sign there. So I probably, let me stop this. I probably want to do something like this. If the goal is to get a negative integer, I probably want to say, while n is, for instance, greater than or equal to 0 would work. So while n is greater than or equal to 0, keep doing this. And that's the logic I wanted to express. So the debugger just saves me from staring at the screen, raising a hand, sort of asking someone else. At least in this case, it allows me to go through it at a healthier pace. Questions now on debug 50, which should be your new friend, even if it's not your first instinct after printf. Any questions on debug 50? No? All right. Well, there's one last technique we can equip you with here. And that is, in addition to printf and a debugger, no joke, a rubber duck is actually a reasonably recommended solution to finding bugs in your code. To your question earlier, the duck2 is not going to solve the problem for you. But if you've wondered why this little guy has been here for so long, there's this technique. It has its own Wikipedia article called rubber duck debugging. The idea of which is that if you're home in your dorm room wrestling with some bug in your code, printf didn't quite reveal the source to you, debugger isn't really helping, honestly, maybe it would help to just sound out what problem you're having. Similar to going to office hours, talking to a TA or a professor, just walking through your problems, because in sort of talking to the duck about, you know, the fact that you're doing this while n is less than 0, and then if it is, oh, wait a minute, I'm an idiot. Not just for talking to the rubber duck, you realize hopefully in expressing yourself literally verbally, you probably will hear with non-zero probability like some illogic in your statement. And just by sounding things out, you'll realize like, oh, that's my problem. And so, frankly, if you have roommates, you can also use a roommate for this. But the rubber duck is just sort of a go-to when your roommates have no interest in your, C problem set, talking something through that as such. And this is an invaluable technique. I admittedly tend not to do it so much with a rubber duck, but ideally with colleagues, human colleagues. But just talking through things often will help you just realize, oh, I said something illogical. Now I can go back to the code. So don't solve problems by staring at your screen endlessly for minutes, for hours. At that point, it's time for a break, time to walk away, time to talk to the duck if you've already exhausted some of those other tools. As an aside, on your way out today at the end of class, we have clearly plenty of rubber ducks for you. It's become a thing over the years, at least among some, to bring the duck with them when they travel and send us photos. Here, for instance, is CS50's Rubber Duck Debugger, aka DDB for Duck Debugger, which is a pun on a geekier program called GDB, the GNU Debugger, which is an actual piece of software for debugging. This is CS50's debugger in the hills of Puerto Rico, also here on the sea. He made its way to San Francisco here. Also down by Fisherman's Wharf by the sea lions, if familiar. Here at Stanford, where there's a William Gates Computer Science building for computer science. Down the road in SF at Google. And this is the Trevi Fountain in Rome. And lastly, the Colosseum. So we'll be curious to see in the coming years where your duck2 travels. So that then was quite a bit. Why don't we go ahead here and take a short 5-minute break. No snacks yet. You're welcome to get up or sit down. We'll return in about 5. All right. So we are back, and if the goal ultimately today is to have a better understanding of things like strings so that we can solve problems with text, let's consider some simpler types of data first, how we might represent those, and then see if that doesn't lead us to a discovery as to like how strings in just today's modern software is using things like that. So when we talked on week 0 about representation of data, we had different ways of doing it in terms of binary and decimal and unary even. When we started talking about the same last week in code, we started talking about data types instead. And these data types were a way of telling the computer, like, do you want an integer? Do you want a character? Do you want a floating point value, like a real number, or even a string, as we've seen? But it turns out that computers, of course, only have finite amounts of resources. Your computer only has a fixed amount of memory or RAM, and that actually has very real-world implications. So for instance, here are some of the data types we've seen thus far. And it turns out that each of these in C has a specific number of bits allocated to it. Now, admittedly, this can vary by system. It's not so much the case nowadays, but for many years, for decades, computers were getting better and better. The earliest computers might have used fewer bits for some of these data types. More modern computers might use more bits. So the numbers you're about to see are pretty much where we are present day. So when it comes to these data types, a bool, which is true or false, somewhat curiously uses a whole byte, even though that's way overkill. Because for a bool, true or false, you of course only need 1 bit. But it turns out, even though it's wasteful to use 8 bits or 1 byte just to represent true or false, it's just easier for computers. So a bool tends to be 1 byte. An int, which we've been using a lot, uses 4 bytes typically, or 32 bits. And if I do some quick math from week 0, with 32 bits, you have 4 billion possible values, roughly. But if you want to represent positive and negative, that means you can represent roughly -2 billion all the way up to +2 billion. So that's the range typically with ints. If that's too few numbers for you, turns out there's things called longs, and longs use 64 bits, which allow you to have like a quintillion number of possibilities, which is a lot, certainly a lot more than 4 billion. So sometimes you might use a long. But even that's finite. And so, as we discussed at the end of last week, bad things can happen if you make certain assumptions as to data because of things like integer overflow or the like, where things wrap around. Then there's a float, which is a real number, something with a decimal point. By convention, it's 4 bytes or 32 bits, which gives you, in short, only a specific amount of precision. It doesn't necessarily dictate how many numbers to the left or to the right. In the aggregate, ultimately, you have, though, 4 billion possible permutations still. If you need more precision for scientific, for medical, for financial applications, you might use 8 bytes, aka a double, which just gives you more digits of precision. They eventually get imprecise per the example we looked at last week, but it at least gets you further down the line. As an aside, in really, really important applications in finance, in medicine, in military operations and the like, where you really can't have rounding errors, long story short, humans have developed libraries in C and other languages that use more even than 8 bytes. So there are solutions to these problems, but they're always finite. You have to pick an upper bound. Then there's char, which we saw briefly last week when I asked the user for y or n for yes or no. And then there's string, which I'm going to propose as a question mark, because a string totally depends. Like hi, hi, exclamation point would seem to be 3 bytes. david would seem to be 5. So strings clearly are variable based on what you or the human type in. So we'll see what this means, though, in just a bit. This, though, is the thing inside of your math.
Who? What are you learning? Code! That's what we're learning in our... We're, gonna be doing these sorts of, early starts with code randomly. At the moment, we're just learning, right? What code? I'm literally just watching, like, lecture stuff, and then, for some of it, typing along with. At the moment, not typing along with because, I've done some of this before, but, like, it's a pain in the ass to add some of it together. But this particular part doesn't need you to type along with it anyway. When it does, then I'll bring up VS Code. So at the moment, learnings, and then in the future, writing some of my own code. Randomly do some earlier streams for this sort of thing.
Mac, your PC, your phone might not look exactly like this, but this is a memory module for a modern computer. And let's go ahead and use this really as just representative of the finite amount of memory that any computer indeed has. Let's zoom in on one of these little black chips on the circuit board here. Zoom in, and let me propose that this rectangle really represents some number of bytes. Like tucked inside of this little black circuit on the board is maybe, I don't know, a gigabyte, a billion bytes, maybe it's 100 bytes, some number of bytes. It totally depends on the computer and how much you paid for the stick of memory. But if there's a finite number of bytes physically implemented somehow digitally inside of this hardware, well, then it stands to reason that we could number those bytes. We can just arbitrarily decide that the top left corner is byte number 1, or really byte number 0. The one next to it is number 1, then number 2, number 3, dot, 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 number 2 billion, or whatever it is, however big this memory is. So if you
Learned a bit of C+ and some other coding types. You don't remember the name of it, though? Yeah, so far he's teaching us C. Later on, he's gonna show us Python. Yeah, about here. So we've got a bit of a ways to go. This whole thing is like a day long. Okay, so it's a bit over 24 hours. We're into 5, nearly 6 hours. This particular lecture seems to be quite long. Of the whole thing.
use a variable in a C program that's only 1 byte, like a char, it might literally
24-hour stream then? I don't feel like I would learn the entire thing by them, my friend, but I do appreciate you thinking that I could.
be stored in that top left-hand corner of the memory. Like in practice, you don't care where physically it is, but really, the artist's rendition would be this. A char might use one of those single bytes somewhere in the computer's memory. If you use an int, which is 4 bytes, it would give you 4 bytes, contiguous, that is left to right, top to bottom, but all 32 bits would be next to each other. So the computer knows that those indeed all belong to the same int. If you need a long, or a double for that matter, then you might use a full 8 bytes in this case. And you just keep using and using this memory kind of like a canvas, you know, almost in Photoshop or a spreadsheet, where you can just move pixels or you can move data around. That's really what your computer's memory is, a canvas for storing information in units of bytes or 8 bits. Now, we don't need to keep looking at these circuit boards. We can abstract it away, as we often do. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this grid just to consider some very specific variables. So let me zoom in, and now I see fewer but larger boxes on the screen, each of which, again, represents a byte. And now let me propose that we play with some actual code. So here in C, albeit without a full program, are 3 ints, score 1, score 2, score 3. I have coincidentally given myself two scores at around 72 and 73, and then a pretty low score at 33. Of course, last week or 2 weeks ago, this would have been high, but now we're dealing with actual integers. So these are 3 so-so scores on my quizzes or tests or the like. So let me go to VS Code here, and let's make a program called scores.
And we say bye-bye.
So I'm going to write code scores.c.
Thank you, buddy.
That's going to give me my new file. And let me go ahead and implement something like this. Include standard.io.h, int main void. And then inside of here, let me do int score 1 will be 72. Int score 2 will be 73. And int score 3 will be 33. And then let me just do something like write a program to average my 3 test scores together, something like that. So let me do printf, quote unquote, my average is, and I'm going to go ahead and do, say, %i \n. And now let me plug in the results. And this is kind of grade school math now. How do I compute the average of 3 values? Well, just like on paper, I can do score 1 plus score 2 plus score 3 in parentheses, because of order of operations, divided by 3, since there's 3 total scores. All right, so I think this checks out. And indeed, you can use parentheses and operators like plus in your code like this in C. Let me go ahead now and do make scores. No syntax errors, so that's good. Nothing missing there. And now let me do /scores and see what my test average is. All right, you know, it's not great, but I think I still passed. And indeed, my average here is 59. Is it precisely 59, though? Well, let's see. Let's actually, instead of using an int, how about we go ahead and use something like a floating point value here. And let me go ahead and do this. So let me recompile my code, make scores. Huh, all right, I've got an issue. Let me zoom in on my terminal window. We've not seen this one necessarily before, but error on line 9. Format specifies type double, which is a lot of precision, but the argument has type int. So what does this mean? Well, it's showing me with these green squigglies that something's bad between the %f and this thing over here. Well, on the left, I'm implying a float, or a double for that matter. On the right, though, what data type are score 1, score 2, score 3? All right, so they're ints. So Clang does not like this. The compiler just doesn't like that I'm using ints on the right, but I want floats on the left. So there's going to be different ways of solving this. One way would be to just ignore the problem like I originally did and just go back to %i. Or, as an aside, %d is often an alternative to %i for a decimal number, but we use %i because it sounds like int. So %i is fine here too. But I don't want to just avoid the problem. I want to actually display a floating point value. So how can I fix this? Well, it turns out I can solve this in a few different ways. The simplest is just to make sure that at least one number on the right is a floating point value, like 3.0 instead of just 3. Now I think Clang will be happier. Let me do make scores, enter. And indeed, it's OK. Why? As soon as you have at least one more precise data type on the right, it just treats everything at that point as floating point value so that the math works out. So /scores, enter. And now, there we go, right? You know, some of us might really want that third of a point. Our average was not 59. It's 59 and a third, as in this case here. All right, so we've solved that there. As an aside, though, there's one other technique to show here. If you didn't want to change it to 3.0, because that's a little weird, because there were literally 3 scores. It's not like that needs to have a decimal point. You could also explicitly convert the 3 to a float by saying in parentheses float. This is what's called typecasting. And this will just convert the thing right after it
Oh, okay, that's cool.
to that data type, if it's possible. So if I do this again, make scores, no errors now, /scores, and I get, in fact, the same result. There's a bit of a rounding issue here, but we know the rounding relates to the imprecision from last week. For now, let me just be happy with my 59.3 something. I'll take that for now. But this is, you know, is close to a good enough correct answer for me now. But how do I think about now what's going on inside of the computer's memory? Well, let's consider. Here's that same grid of memory. Each box represents a byte. Where are score 1, score 2, and score 3 in my memory? Well,
Give me a minute, chat. Hello, chat. I am back from outer space. Oh,
Score 1, let me just propose, is at the top left, but it's taking up 4 boxes for 4 bytes. Score 2 probably ends up right next to it in memory, though this isn't always going to be the case, but I've chosen simple examples. 73 is next to it, also taking up 4 bytes. And then lastly, 33 is in score 3 down there underneath. Now, if we really look at the computer's memory, look at it with some kind of microscope or the like, there's actually 32 bits, 32 bits, 32 bits in each of those 4 groups of 4 bytes representing those values. But again, for today's purposes onwards, we don't really need to think again and again in binary. It's just indeed these decimal numbers being stored there. But I claim now this isn't the best design. Even if you had never programmed before CS50, what you're looking at here on the screen as an excerpt, in what sense is this perhaps bad design, even though it's a correct way of storing 3 test scores? What's kind of bad here? Yeah? Yeah, always do exactly what you did. Extrapolate to 4 scores, 5 scores, 50 scores. This can't be that well designed because now you're going to have 4 lines of code, 5 lines of code, 50 lines of code that are almost identical, except for this like arbitrary number that we're updating at the end of the variable. So indeed, there's probably going to be a better way, even though, at least in C, we haven't yet seen that technique. But the solution today onward is going to be something called an array. An array is a way of storing your data back to back to back in the computer's memory in such a way that you can access each individual member easily. Put another way, with an array, you can instead do something like this. Instead of saying int score 1, int score 2, int score 3, giving each a value, you can first tell the computer, please give me a variable called scores, plural, though you can call it anything you want, of size 3, each of which will be an integer. That is to say, this is how you declare an array in C that will have enough room to store 3 integers. Put another way, this is the technical way of telling the computer, please give me 12 bytes in total. 3 times 4 each for an int, so give me 12 bytes in total. And what the computer will do is guarantee that they're back to back to back in the computer's memory. And that'll be useful in just a moment. So let me go ahead and do something useful with this. Let me store 3 actual scores. Here's how I could now store those same numeric scores in this array. Syntax is a little different, but there's one variable called scores. But if you want to go to its first location, starting today, you use square brackets and go to location 0 first, which, because things in C are 0 indexed, so to speak, you start counting at 0. The first int is at bracket 0. Second int is at bracket 1. Third int is at bracket 2. So it's not 1, 2, 3. It's literally 0, 1, 2. And this is not something you have control over. You must start at 0. So these lines now create an array of size 3, and then insert 1, 2, 3 values into that array. But the upside now is that you only have one name of the variable to remember. It's just called scores. Yes, you need to go into the array to get individual values. You need to index into it using those square brackets, but at least you don't have this hackish approach of declaring a separate variable for each and every one of these values. So let me go back to scores.c here, and let me propose that I do this. Let me just kind of use that same idea to do the following. Let me get rid of these 3 separate integers. Let me give myself an int scores array of size 3, and then scores bracket 0 will, as before, be 72. Scores bracket 1 will be 73. And scores bracket 2 will be 33. And let me get rid of the little dot there. All right, so now if I go ahead and run this again with make scores, enter. What did I do wrong here? I think I got a little too ahead of myself. Let me increase my terminal window. Let's focus on line 10 here first. Error, use of undeclared identifier score 1. What did I do here that was dumb? Yeah?
You didn't declare an array.
Right, so I didn't declare score 1. I've got old code, right? So I just kind of honestly got ahead of myself here, not even intentionally. So let me go ahead and shrink my terminal window again. I need to finish my thought here. So let me clear my terminal, and let me change this now to be scores bracket 0 plus scores bracket 1 plus scores bracket 2. So it's a little more verbose because I've got these square brackets, so to speak. But I think now my code is consistent. So let me make scores now. it now compiles, /scores gives me indeed the same rough average with those same values. All right, so let me go ahead. Gives me inconsistent. So I've got these square brackets, so to speak, but I think to be scores bracket 0 plus scores bracket 1 plus scores bracket 2. So it's a little more verbose because I've got these square brackets, so to speak, but I think now my code is consistent. So let me make scores now. It now compiles, /scores gives me indeed the same rough average with those same values. All right, so let me go ahead and maybe enhance this a little bit. It's a little silly to have to write a special program just to check your average of 3 test scores, like 72, 73, 33. Why don't I actually make the program dynamic and ask the human for that average, for those scores? So instead, let me do this. How about we get rid of the 72 and change this to getInt, and I'll just prompt the user for a score. Let me get rid of the 33 and change 73 and get this to be getInt, score, quote unquote. And then lastly, get rid of the 33 and replace it with getInt, quote unquote, score. GetInt is a CS50 thing for now, so I need to include cs50.h as always. But I think now it's sort of a better program because now I can compile it once, I can even share it with my friends, and now any of us can average 3 scores on some class's test. They don't need to know the code or rewrite the code just to type in their scores. So make scores, worked, /scores. Now I can type anything I want. Maybe it's a 72, 73, 33. Still get the same answer. Or maybe I'm having a better semester, 100, 100, maybe 99. And now we get still a pretty high score there. But now it's dynamic. Now you don't need the source code. You don't need to recompile the program. It's just going to work again and again. But this too, let me propose that this code is correct if I want to get 3 scores from the user. But these highlighted lines now, 6 through 9, are they well designed, would you say? Yeah. Yeah, right? We can use a loop is the spoiler here. Why? I mean, my God, it's like the same code again and again and again. The only thing that's changing is the number. And it should have kind of had some code smell again, because if I keep typing the same thing again and again, like that's clearly an opportunity to better design something. So let me do this. Let me go ahead and still create my array of size 3. But let me use our old friend, the for loop, for int I equals 0, I less than 3, I plus plus, and then in here, let me do scores bracket. We haven't seen this before, but any intuition? Scores bracket I, because that will use whatever I is, be it 0 or 1 or 2 in iteration, and then I can get an int asking the user for score without having to repeat myself again and again. So hopefully, if I didn't make any typos, make scores, all good. /scores, 72, 73, 33, and we're back in business. But the code is arguably now better designed because now I haven't actually hard-coded the scores, and I haven't actually copied and pasted any of that code. Well, if we consider now what's going on inside of the computer's memory, it's pretty much the same in terms of the values, but instead of the
How you, Jim?
variables being literally score 1, score 2, score 3, there's just one variable. It's an array called scores, but you can index into its 3 locations by using scores bracket 0 to get the first, scores bracket 1 to get the second, scores bracket 2 to get the third. But this is key. The memory is contiguous. It's only the screen is only so large, so it wraps around. But physically, digitally, the memory is contiguous, top to bottom, left to right. And that's important. Why? Because the brackets indicate 0, 1, 2, that each of these integers is just one integer away from the next. It can't be randomly down here all of a sudden. It's got to be back to back to back. All right, now equipped with that paradigm, what more could we actually do here? Well, it turns out it's worth knowing that it's possible in code to even pass arrays around as arguments. And let me just whip this program up somewhat quickly just so you've seen it before long. But let me go ahead and do this. Let me propose that I create a function that does this averaging for me. So I'm going to create a function called average that returns a float. And the arguments this thing is going to take, let's see, it's going to be the array. So it turns out if you want to take in an array of numbers, you can call it anything you want. This is how you tell C that a function takes not an integer, but an array of integers. And you don't have to call it array. I'm doing that just for the sake of discussion. It can be called x. It can be numbers. It can be anything else. I'm just calling it array to be super explicit as to what it is there. Now, how do I change my code down here? What I think I'm going to do for the moment is just this. I'm going to get rid of this code here, where I manually computed the average. And let me just call the average function here by passing in the whole array of scores. So this is just an example of abstraction. Like now I have a function called average. I don't care. I don't have to remember how it works once I implement it. And it just kind of tightens up my main code a little bit. But I do still have to implement this. So later in my file, let me repeat myself before. The only time it's OK in C to repeat yourself again and again by typing out again average and then int array, open bracket, but now not a semicolon. Now I have to implement this thing. And I can implement this in a bunch of different ways. But I don't know, in advance, I can't just do this. I can't just do array bracket 0 plus array bracket 1 plus array bracket 2, unless this program's only ever going to work on 3 numbers. So let me go ahead and do this. Let me first propose that there's a poor design here. In my main function, what value have I repeated twice? Among the highlighted lines, what jumps out at you as twice? Yeah, the length of the array is just 3. Now, it's not a huge deal that I type the number 3 on line 8, on line 9. But this is exactly the kind of like shortcut that's going to get you in trouble eventually. Why? Because eventually you or someone else is going to go in, make the array bigger or smaller. And you're not going to realize that magically that same number is in 2 places. And indeed, this is what a programmer would often call a magic number. A magic number is one that just kind of appears magically. And you're on the honor system to change it here if you change it here. And then you change it over here. Like, that's not going to end well if the onus is on the programmer to remember where they hard-coded, that is, wrote out 3 explicitly. So anytime you reuse a value like this, you know what? We should probably do what we did last week, which was to declare a variable, perhaps at the very top of my program, so it's super obvious what it is, called maybe n, and set that equal to 3. Better yet, what did I do last week to make sure that I can't screw up and accidentally change that value? Yeah, constant. And the keyword there was just const for short. And now I have a global variable, global in the sense that I can access it anywhere, that is called n. It's an int, and it's always going to be 3. And now I can improve my main function a little bit by just changing the 3's to n. So now if a colleague realizes, oh, wait a minute, there's 4 tests this year, you change n to 4, recompile the code, and it just works everywhere else. Except in my average function. Let me change it back to 3, just for consistency. This is not going to fly now to just sum up things like this, for instance, and then return this divided by 3. Why will this not work now, as I've defined it? Yeah. OK, I might be returning an integer value when I intend to return a float per this. But I think I'm OK, because I used that little trick where I made sure that at least one of the numbers in my arithmetic expression is, in fact, a floating point value. And just by adding the point 0, make sure that everything gets treated as a float. So I think that's OK. Oh, sorry, a little louder? Exactly. So left hand's not talking to the right hand here, in that my current implementation of average is still assuming that there's only going to be 3 tests or whatever. But wait a minute, I just went through the trouble of modifying this to be n generically. And if I change this to 4, I'm not going to be happy, perhaps, with my average, because now I'm going to ignore one of my test scores altogether. So let me change this back to 3. And unfortunately, if it's a variable now n, and therefore I have literally a variable number of scores, how do I take the average of a variable number of things? I mean, what's my building block there? Yeah? Yeah, why don't I use a loop that goes through the array and adds things up as you go? I mean, kind of like grade school. As you take the average on your calculator or paper pencil, you just keep adding the numbers together, and then you divide at the end by the total number of things. So how can I do this? Well, let me change my implementation of average to first declare a variable called sum or whatever, set it equal to 0. So this is like me on my piece of paper getting ready to count, or my calculator, of course, when you turn it on, typically defaults to 0. And now let me do for int I equals 0. I is less than nope, I didn't do that. N, I is less than n, I plus plus. And now in here, let me go ahead and add to the current sum whatever is in the array's location I. And then down here, I think I can just return sum divided by 3.0 n. Perhaps here. And actually, I think I'm going to get, let's make sure it's a float. Let's use the typecasting trick just to make sure I don't accidentally shortchange someone and throw away everything after the decimal point. So it just escalated quickly, right? Like average just got a lot more involved. It's not just a single one line of code, but now it's dynamic. I initialize a variable called sum to 0. In this loop, I go through and just keep adding to sum, which is initially 0, whatever's in array bracket I, or specifically array bracket 0, array bracket 1, array bracket 2. That gives me a total sum that I return divided by the total number of things. Now this I can tighten slightly. Recall that this is syntactic sugar for just adding things. I can't use plus plus because that only literally adds 1, but I can use here plus equals. Questions on this implementation here? Really, the only takeaway, or the most important takeaway, is that this is the syntax for how you tell a function that it expects a whole array, not a single variable like an int or the like. You literally use square brackets, but you don't specify the length inside there. Yeah? What about the variable at the top? Good question. What do I have it defined as at the top? This variable n, it must be an integer if you're going to use it inside of an array's square brackets here. So this line 10, notice, no longer says 3. It says n. And so whatever n is, 3 or 4 or something else, that's how many integers I will get in that array. And it must be, by definition of an array, an integer that goes in those square brackets. And here's a common source of confusion. When you create the array, that is, declare it, you use square brackets like this, where you put the total number of elements you want. When you subsequently use the array, like I'm doing here, you don't mention int again, just like you don't mention int again and again once a variable exists. You use the square brackets still, but you don't use n. You use 0 or 1 or 2, or generically here, I. So when C was designed, they sometimes use the same syntax for two different ideas or contexts. Yeah? Good question. Do I have to include line 6? Short answer, yes, because of the reason we ran into last week. C, or Clang really, reads your code top to bottom, left to right. And so if the compiler sees some mention of this function average on line 16, but you haven't told the compiler that average exists, you're going to get an error on the screen. So the conventional way to do that is you just copy paste the one first line of code from the function. It's so-called prototype or declaration. Yeah? Really good question and a perfect segue. Is there a library you can use if you don't know the size of the array? No. And so if any of you have programmed in Java or Python or other languages, you can actually just ask the array, like, how big is it? In C, you and I, the programmers, have to remember it. And so short answer, no. There's no function that will just automatically do this for us. And in fact, let me make a more subtle claim that it's fine to use global variables like this if they're really for configuration options. Why? It's just convenient to put them at the very top of the file because everyone, you, your colleagues, your TAs, are going to see them at the top of the code. But you really shouldn't be using them everywhere throughout your code. It'd be better if the average function itself were independent of that special variable. So by that I mean this. You know what I should really do if I really want to be well designed? I should pass in the length of the array to the average function. I should give the average function a second argument. I'll call it length, for instance, but I could call it anything I want. And so rather than putting n all the way down here at the bottom of my file, let me just dynamically say length instead. And this is a subtlety, and no need to get too tripped up over this. But this now is just an example of how the same function can take not one but two arguments. But indeed in C, you must remember yourself what the length of an array is. You can't just ask the array via some syntax like you can, those of you who've programmed before in Java or Python. Yeah? Good question. Would it be better designed to write a function that computes the size? Short answer, can't do that in C. As soon as you pass an array into a function in C, you cannot figure out its size if it's a generic array like that of integers. There are special cases that you can do that, but in general, no. It's just not possible in C. And if that's some frustration, honestly, this is why more modern languages add that feature. Why? Because it was really annoying, as I'm alluding here, to not having that information. Now, just to make sure I didn't screw up anywhere, let me compile this final version of scores. Suspense, all good, /scores, 72, 73, 33, and we're still back in business. So this version's more complicated, and as always, we'll have this version on the course's website for reference. But the point really is that arrays not only can be used as containers to store multiple values, 3 or more in this case, you can also even pass them around as arguments. As such. All right, now besides that, let's simplify for just a moment and consider now the world of chars. If we've just got single bytes, where does this lead us, and how does this get us ultimately to strings to solve problems like readability and cryptography and the like? Well, here, for instance, are 3 lines of code out of context that simply store 3 chars. And you can already see where this is going. Having 3 variables called C1, C2, C3 is clearly going to end up being bad design because of all the silly redundancy here. But notice I'm using single quotes like last week because these are single chars. What does this look like in the computer's memory? Well, it looks a little something like this. If we clear out the old memory, C1, C2, C3 probably will end up here. Maybe not literally in the top left-hand corner. This is just an artist's rendition. But C1, C2, C3 will probably end up like that. Now, what's really there? It's really those same 3 numbers, 72, 73, 33. But how many bits does a byte have? Just 8. So if we were to look at the binary representation of these characters, it would only be 8 bits each. That's enough to store small numbers like 72, 73, 33. We're not dealing with Unicode and emoji and the like, but the point is the same. You don't have to use 4 bytes to store these numbers. You can use a different data type like chars, and underneath the hood, it's indeed going to use just single bytes for each. But this is sort of like
Taking the EDX class too. I don't know what that is, Loco. I just want to learn code. And I've wanted to learn it for a while, so like I'm just doing this for me, I guess. What's EDX, my friend? I assume that it's some form of like code class thing. If you go to edx.com, no break. Oh, okay. Thanks, man. Same class you're watching us on EDX. It gives you a school way of the class. That's way cool. Thank you. With homework and tips. Yo, that's so cool. Thank you, bro. I'll have a look at it then. Used it to get into Python. Yeah, because in like lesson 6, you get to Python in this. That's cool. How long you been doing it for? You're now on C++, about to get into Java and Swift, same boat as you just learning? How yeah. That's cool, bud. I've like dabbled on and off for like a little bit. So now I'm just trying to get my butt into gear and learn a little bit more.
isn't really how we.
You started in January, but you've been really lazy, and now in February I started a class for it. Hey, that's cool, bud. I started some of this on and off last year in January, February, and then like on and off like for a while. Yeah. I figure if I do it on stream a little bit earlier, I'll be more consistent with it. You're still learning Python? Hell yeah, late night. Also, it's good to see you, man. Hope you're having a good day.
Implement strings, right? When you wanted to say hi last week or this, we used double quotes, and we wrote all of the things together and used one.
Like, I got like a thing on my phone, right? It didn't cost me fickle. It cost me like, I want to say like maybe $20. And I was like learning it off that for a little bit. And it's great, but I think I do better with like talking and probably some lessons too. It's definitely helpful though.
One variable, not three, right? When I typed in David, I didn't have a variable for D, A, V, I, D. I had one variable called name that stored the whole thing. So in C, we keep talking about these things called strings. We'll see eventually that strings are not necessarily what they seem to be. But for now, the key thing about strings is that they're variable length, so to speak, right? They might be 3 characters, hi, or 5 characters, David, or
I'm trying to get really into it now in August, as it is really something you have to do every day to get good at. Yeah, I've noticed that, Loco. It's what I'm trying to do too. Get more into it. Try to do a bit each day, and that way I'm not gonna like overwhelm myself with because before I was like doing like huge parts of like learning it, and then I would just go like for a while of like just doing nothing. And so like that's not as good. I should really just like, even if I feel like I could probably go a little bit longer, I should probably just set an amount of time every day to do it, and that way I just learn little by little by little, and that's probably better. Because that way I'm not gonna like, what is it, burn myself out on it. Even if I am enjoying it, it can just be something I look forward to like for the next day or so. Did I hear the new season of Futurama on Hulu comes out? No! That's cool, Kev. Kate's been like looking for like shows and stuff to like watch. I should probably like suggest that. I really liked the previous Futurama. I hope it's just as good. You still do the same, Loco? Hell yeah. Python is great to get into programming. I noticed since you learn all the basics really easily, but now that I've used different languages, I know how similar they all are, just different syntax. Your favorite being C++ right now? Yeah, well, so because I really wanted to get, like, the 3 languages so far I really want to learn well, C at the moment, because that seems to be, like, quite, actually, no. I guess it'd technically be 4. I don't know if, like, C, like, I think C counts with, like, C++, or is it C sharp? Like, they're one of them's, like, basically the same, but with a few more features. I know that, because I have something I use called StreamerBot, and it likes to use C sharp for programming, so I was curious about that, although I know you can use other languages for it to, do things. So I wanted to learn, yeah. C and C++ are the same? Okay, that's cool. Another thing is not to follow tutorials that much, as you're going to fuck yourself with the tutorial. How? Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I was thinking that, because, like, there's only, like, so many, like, videos and tutorials and stuff you can do. At some point, you're gonna have to, like, make your own shit. But, like, I've been thinking about that for a while, like, how that would work. So I've been thinking about, like, getting some sort of lesson plan. EDX sounds like a good thing. Becomes hard to think for yourself? Yeah, that makes sense, because I was like, if I do too much, like, on this, and because I saw, Primogen? Primogen, like, because I've been looking at, you know, I've been looking at, like, different coding things. Primogen and, like, Thor, or Pirate Software, have been, like, popping up in my, like, YouTube feed. And I noticed that he said it's always better to do, like, not the tutorial things after a certain bit and just go for something you like. Because otherwise you just learn how to, like, do something that everybody's doing. Pirate Game Jam's going on right now. Yeah. I want to try getting into the next one, not this one, because I'm still learning. Also, thank you for the follow, Loco. I appreciate it. Same? Hell yeah. Some people didn't like the new season much, I heard, but I did. There was one episode that I thought was weird, though. Yeah. How much of the new season is out, Kev? That's interesting. When they released Enchanted, like, I thought it might be pretty cool. I watched, like, a few episodes of that, and I couldn't get into it at all. Did I watch the one last year? I don't believe so. I might have, but I don't think so. It's already done, but they're doing another that starts tonight with the first 2 episodes. That's so cool. I'm glad they're doing some more of that.
Anything
I ain't
smaller
fucking
or
around anymore, Josh.
Yeah,
Watch
Jim.
Bluey. Watch it now.
Thanks, man. And I will watch Bluey maybe. Definitely not right now though.
larger. So how do we go about implementing strings?
Felt
if all
relevant,
we have At the
yeah.
end of the day is my memory. Well, here is an example of just creating, declaring and defining a string called S. S because it's just a simple string and quote unquote hi in double quotes. What does this look like in the computer's memory? Well, let's clear it again. And here now, because it's technically stored in one variable S, here is how I might draw it as an artist. It's 3 bytes in total, HI exclamation point, but there's no C1, C2, C3. It's just the whole thing is S. But it turns out that a string, fun fact, is really just what underneath the hood? Kind of leading up to this. What is a string if this is how it's laid out in memory? Literally, it's just an array of characters. And we didn't have to know about arrays last week to use strings. This is where, again, the training wheels are starting to come off. But a string is just an array of characters, HI exclamation point, for instance. So technically, an array, or a string called S, is really a variable called S that allows you to get at the first character with S bracket 0 if you want. S bracket 1, S bracket 2. You can literally get individual characters just by treating S as though it's an array, which it really is underneath the hood in this case. But there's a catch. How do you know where strings end? In the past, when I drew some integers on the screen, I claim they always take up 4 bytes. If I had drawn a long, it always takes up 8 bytes. If I had drawn a character, it always takes up 1 byte. But how many bytes does a string take up? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the right answer. In this case, 3, it would seem. But if it's David, that's a good 5 characters. But where do we put the number 3? Where do you put the number 5? Right? This is literally all that's into your computer. This is all our building blocks in front of us. So how can we, where does the 3 go? Where does the 5 go? Well, it turns out you can solve this in a couple of different ways. But the way humans decided to implement strings years ago is indeed an array. But they added 1 extra byte at the end of every such string array just to make clear with a so-called sentinel value that the string ends here. Why? So that if you have 2 strings in the computer's memory, like hi and bye, you know where the barrier is between like the exclamation point of one and the letter B in the next, right? You need some kind of delimiter. And so what really is underneath the hood is this. When you store a string in memory, when you type in a string as the user, if you type in 3 characters, it's going to use 3 plus 1 equals 4 bytes in total. If you type in David, it's going to use 5 plus 1 equals 6 bytes in total. Why? Because C automatically adds this special 0 at the end of the string. I've drawn it with \0 because this is how you represent 0 as a char, as a character. But this is literally just 0, as we'll soon see. So anytime there's a string in memory, it always takes up 1 more byte than you yourself as the programmer or human typed in. In fact, if we convert this again, just for discussion's sake, to those integers, what's literally stored in the computer's memory is going to be 72, 73, 33, and now a 0. And the computer, because of C and how it was invented, it's just smart enough to know that when you print out a string, it prints out every character until it sees a 0, and then it just stops printing. In particular, printf knows how this works, and this is why printf knows when to stop printing. Decimal numbers are not that enlightening. We'll generally write the characters like this. And again, \0 is just special symbology, like it's what the programmer types to make clear that you're not saying hi 0, you're saying hi, and then it's a special 0. Specifically, it is 8 0 bits that indicate that it's the end of the string. Technically, that \0, if you want to be fancy, it's called null, N-U-L. And it turns out you've seen this before, though we didn't call it out. Here's that same ASCII chart from the past couple of weeks. If I highlight this, what is decimal number 0 mapping to? NUL, which is just programmer speak for the special null character. All 0 bits, that means the string ends here. This all happens automatically for you. You do not need to create these null characters or these zeros. Any questions then on this implementation thus far? Any questions here? No? Well, let me do this. Let me go back to VS Code in a second, and let's actually corroborate this with some code. Let me go ahead and create a small program called hi.c. And how about we do this? Let me include standardio.h. Let me include, let me type out int main void as always. And now let me do something simple and kind of bad, but char c1 equals quote unquote h in single quotes. Char c2 equals quote unquote I in single quotes. And lastly, char c3 equals exclamation point in single quotes. And now let me just print this out. I can't use %s because that is not a string. That's literally 3 chars because that's the design decision I made. But I could do this. %c, 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 which we haven't seen before, but %s is string, %i is int, %c is indeed char. So let me put a \n at the end for cleanliness, and now do c1, c2, c3. So this is like a char-based version of printing strings. So let me make hi, and then let me do /hi, and it looks like I used printf with %s. But I did things very manually by printing out each individual character. What's cool now, though, is that once you know that characters are just numbers and strings are just characters, you can kind of poke around. Let me change all 3 placeholders to %i instead. And this is totally fine, too. Let me rerun this. Make hi, actually, let me make one change, just so we can see this. Let me add spaces, just for aesthetics sake. Let me do make hi, /hi, enter, and voila. Like now you can actually see the numbers that I claimed back in week 0 were in fact happening underneath the hood. Well, this is not how you would make strings. It'd be incredibly tedious to have 3 variables for 3-letter words, 5 variables for 5-letter words. We've been using, of course, strings since last week, so let's do that instead. String s equals quote unquote double quotes hi. For this, no, because of these training wheels, I need to include the CS50 library, but we'll come back to that in the coming weeks. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and create a string s called quote unquote hi. And now I'm going to change this to be my familiar %s, and now just print out s itself. This, of course, is the same thing as last week. /hi gives me the exact same thing. But now we're dealing, of course, with strings. But how can we see a little beyond that? Well, how about this? Let's poke around further with today's primitives. Even though s is a string, I could technically print out its first character with %c by doing s bracket 0. I could technically print out its second character with %c by doing s bracket 1. I could print out its third character with %c and printing out s bracket 2. So again, this just derives logically from my understanding now of that strings are arrays, as you note. Let me do make hi, /high, and no visual change, but I'm just kind of now tinkering around. And in fact, if you're really curious, let me do this. Let me change these back to I, back to I, oops, back to I, and let me add a fourth one, because if I'm really curious now, let's see what's at S bracket 3. This is the fourth byte, and even though the string itself is HI, I think we can corroborate this whole null thing. Make high, /high, enter, and there it is. You could have done this last week if you really wanted to geek out on strings, but like for now, it's just revealing what's going on underneath the hood. Questions then on what these strings are? Yeah? Why do we need the bracket? Why do you not need brackets? Good question. Why do I not need brackets on line 6? Because S is a string. We'll see in a couple of weeks that S is essentially implemented underneath the hood, indeed, as an array, but that happens automatically for you. You can treat S as just a variable name without square brackets. You will use square brackets when you have arrays of ints, or you manually create arrays of chars, or doubles, or floats, or anything else. But strings are special. Why? I mean, every program you write seems to use strings, text in some form. We're humans. We like text, not just numbers and such. So this is just treated a little specially in C and many other languages as well. All right, other questions on this here? No, let's add then one other string to the mix. So instead of just saying hi, why don't we consider a version of the program that says both hi and bye? And I claim now that that \0, that null character, is going to be ever more important now if we've got two strings in memory, so that C knows how to distinguish one from the other. So let me go ahead and just get rid of these two lines for the moment. Let me recreate string S equals, quote unquote, double quotes, hi. Let me give myself another one, and because I'm just playing around, I'll choose very short variable names. String T equals, quote unquote, bye, exclamation point. And then let me just print them both out. Let me go ahead and print out %s \n, comma s, and then printf %s \n, and then t. So very simple demonstration of just these two variables, make hi, /high, and of course it prints out two lines, one after the other. What's actually going on underneath the hood? Well, let's go back to the computer's memory. Hi, I think, is going to be, I claim, pretty much the same. So S, I'll claim, is in the top left, followed by the \0, and that's important now because bye probably is going to end up there. And visually it wraps just by nature of how I've drawn this grid of bytes, but it's contiguous. B, Y, E, exclamation point, null, aka \0, this is now helpful to printf because now printf knows where one begins and ends by way of that special null character. But we can poke around now too. What else can I do here? How about this? How about I go into my code here, back to VS Code, and let me go ahead and say something like, well, if I've got two of these strings, let's put them in an array. Let's kind of do this sort of arrays in arrays, sort of Inception style here. So string words, bracket 2. So give me an array of two strings is what I'm saying here in code, even though we've not done it with strings yet. We only did it with ints. And now let me do this. The first word, aka words bracket 0, will equal, as before, hi. And now words bracket 1 will equal, quote unquote, bye, bytes. So bye. And now I've done the exact same thing, but again, I'm just avoiding having S, T, Q, R, and like all these different variables in my code. I just now am treating them as one single array of strings. How do I change my code down here? Well, if I want to print the first word, I do words bracket 0. And if I want to print the second word, I do words bracket 1. This is not a useful exercise at the moment because I'm just making my code more complicated. But again, it allows us to poke around and see what's going on because there's that hi and bye. But watch this. If I really want to be cool, I can do this. Let's print out %c, 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 \n. And then here, %c, 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 %c. So 4 of those. And now, here's where things get interesting. Words is an array of strings. But again, if I may, what's a string? An array of characters. So just use the same logic. If words is an array of strings, you get at the first string.
Yeah, way. Itchy earlobe.
With words bracket 0. How do you get at the first character in the first string? Bracket 0. words bracket 0 bracket 1. And lastly, words bracket 0 bracket 2. And now down here, words bracket 1, but the first character is there. Words bracket 1, the second character is here. Words bracket 1, the third character's here. Whoops, third character's here. And words bracket 1, the fourth character is here. Like, this is not how people program. This is only for demonstration's sake. My God, it's so tedious and verbose already. But if I make hi now, /hi, now I'm like manually reinventing %s if I forgot it existed using %c alone. But you can indeed manipulate arrays in this way. But because strings are arrays of characters, you can manipulate strings in this way too. Any question now on this syntax? Any questions here? No? No? All right. Well, let's go ahead and propose that we solve a couple of other problems we might not have as before. But first, a quick visual of what's been going on underneath the hood here. If here again is where we left off on the screen, hi and by back to back, here is really how I just treated these things. S bracket 0, 1, 2, 3, and then T 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But really, once I put them in an array, the picture becomes this. Words bracket 0 is the whole hi. Words bracket 1 is the whole by. But if I really get into the weeds and start indexing into individual characters in those strings, all I'm using is new syntax in order to represent these same values here. Questions then on these representations before we forge ahead? No? Yeah. Does the new line character, say that once more? Really good question. Does the new line character take up any space? It does so far as printf is concerned, but I'm not storing the \n in my strings. Printf is being manually handed that thing instead. All right, so let's go ahead then and consider how we might solve some problems that have arisen now with these strings as follows here. Let's do this. Let me go back to VS Code here, and let me go ahead and open up a new file called, how about length.c. And let's consider for a moment how I might actually figure out what the length of a string is, which is distinct from the length of an array. I claimed earlier you cannot figure out dynamically what the length of an array is, but I can figure out the length of a string specifically because of this implementation detail of that null character. So let me go ahead and do this. Let me include cs50.h in this second program here. Let me include standardIO.h as before. And let me do this. Int main void. And in the first thing I'll do is just get a string from the user. I'll ask the user, as always, for their name. So I'll call getString and say, what's your name, question mark, as always. And then down here, if I want to figure out the length of this string and print the length out on the screen, well, I can kind of do this similar in spirit to the average, where I'm accumulating something. Let me go ahead and initialize n to 0. Let me give myself it's not a for loop because I don't know in advance how long it is. But what if I do this? While the value at name bracket n does not equal single quote \0. Crazy syntax at the moment, but it's just the culmination of these various building blocks. Let me just finish the thought here. N++. And then down here, let's just print out with printf and %i that value of n. So I claim this is going to show me the length of any string I type in, whether it's hi or by or David or anything else. I initialize a variable to 0. And that's good because that's where you start counting in general. While name bracket 0 does not equal \0. What is this saying? Well, if name is the string the user typed in, and name is just an array, as you noted, then name bracket 0 is going to be the first character. And I'm asking the question, well, does the first character not equal \0? And if I type in David, D, it's not. So I keep going, and I add 1 to n. Then I'm going to check name bracket 1. Well, if I typed in David, name bracket 1 is going to be A. A does not equal \0, and so it's going to go again. And again, and again. But 5 steps in total later, it's going to get to the byte after DAVID, realize, wait a minute, that is a \n. The loop finishes, and I print out the total length. Arrays in general do not have this null character. However, strings do. Again, strings are special versus all of the other data types we've talked about thus far. But how could I, for instance, do this differently? Well, let's actually factor this out as a function, as I've commonly done. But rather than implement it myself, you know what? It turns out what's nice about strings being so common, there are many other people who have solved these problems before. And in fact, there's a whole string library in C. It is used by way of a header file called string.h. And what string.h is a library of string-related functions. In fact, you can see in CS50's manual pages for C, the string.h functions, at least those that we recommend as most useful. And in particular, if you poke around there, you'll see that there's a function called strlen. Means string length. It was named very succinctly just because it's a little easier to type than string length. But strlen tells you the length of a string. So how might I use this in my code here? Well, it turns out I can simplify this quite a bit. Let me get rid of my loop, get rid of my, my counting manually, and do something like this. Int n equals strlen of the human's name, and now I'll just use printf as before with %i\n and output the value of n. But there's a bug at the moment. What have I forgotten to do? Yeah, I have to include the header file at the top of the screen. So let me, at the top of the code, so let me also include string.h at the top of my file so that C knows that, in fact, strlen exists. Let me go ahead and make length as before, /length, or actually really for the first time, what's your name, DAVID, and hopefully I'm going to see, in fact, 5. By contrast, if I run it again and type in hi exclamation point, now I see 3. So strlen is just one of the functions in that library, and there's so many more. In fact, yet another library that might be useful moving forward is this one, ctype, which relates to C data types and lots of functions therein that can be useful. For instance, if you review its documentation in the manual pages online, you'll see that there are functions via which we can solve problems like this. Let me go ahead and propose here. Let me see. Let's do example here involving how about checking if something is uppercase or lowercase and converting it to uppercase only. Let me go back to VS Code and code a program called uppercase.c. In this file, I'm going to start by including now, as always, cs50.h. I'm going to include standardIO.h. And I'm going to add one other to the mix, which is string.h now too. So I can access the length of things as needed. Int main void comes next. And then within my main function, I'm going to go ahead and declare a string called s. I'm going to call getString as before. And I'm going to go ahead and just ask the user for a string called before. I want to do a before and after. Whatever the user types in is before, but I want to force everything to uppercase thereafter. Let me now, in this loop here, do this. Let me printf, quote unquote, after, just so we can see this on the screen. And let me do for. Int I gets 0. I is less than strlen of s, I plus plus. What am I about to do? I'm about to iterate over every character in the string from left to right, from 0 on up to, but not through the length of s. And how do I check if something is lowercase so that I can actually force it to uppercase? Well, it turns out I could do this literally. If the character in s at location I is greater than or equal to capital A, ampersand ampersand, which means and instead of or, which we saw in the past, s bracket I is less than or equal to little z, that means logically in English that this is indeed lowercase. How do I now convert it to uppercase, this character? Well, I could just literally print out the same character, but that would not be the answer here, because that's not changing the value. But what could I do instead? Well, let me actually pull up here real fast the ASCII chart as before, and let's see if we can't glean some insight. If I pull up the same ASCII chart, and suppose the human has typed in a lowercase a, that's 97. What letter I want to convert it to uppercase A. So what number do I want to convert the 97 to per week 0? So 65. We keep coming back to that one. What if the user types in lowercase b? I want to change the 98 value to 66 and so forth. And any quick math, how far apart are those? So it's always 32. Like uppercase to lowercase is always, wonderfully, good design, 32 away, one from the other. So what does this mean? Well, I think we saw earlier that underneath the hood, a char is just a number. You can certainly do arithmetic on it. And here again, if you understand these lower level primitives, what if I do this? Whatever s bracket I is, if I know on line 13 that it's lowercase, do I want to add or subtract 32? So I want to subtract because I want to go from like 97 to 65 or 98 to 66. So indeed, if you do some quick math, that gives you 32. So it suffices to just treat chars as numbers, subtract the 32, and printing it with %c, I think will just convert lowercase to uppercase. If you now fast forward to like the real world, Microsoft Word or Google Docs, if you've ever chosen the menu option that forces things to uppercase or lowercase on occasion, literally that's what Microsoft and Google have done. They iterate over every character in the document, check if it's lowercase, and if so, they subtract 32 from it and show you the new value. What if, though, it is not a lowercase letter? I think I can keep it easy and just print out the current letter unchanged if my goal is to simply force things to all uppercase, and that letter then would be s bracket I. So let me go ahead now and make uppercase. Hopefully no errors. /uppercase. And I'll now type in David with an uppercase D, but lowercase everything else. But now the after version is David. An aesthetic bug. Notice here I forgot to include, just for prettiness' sake, a \n at the end. No problem. I'll add that. Let me fix my mistake. Make uppercase. /uppercase enter. DAVID enter. And voila. And I deliberately added another space after the after just so that they would line up pretty, even though before and after have different numbers of letters. Questions then on this implementation of forcing something to uppercase, which in and of itself is not all that enlightening, but is representative now of how you can leverage these low-level primitives. Question? No? All right. Well, this honestly is tedious. My God, like does Microsoft, Google, everyone, you have to literally write out this code just to do something simple? Well, no. That's again why we have things like libraries. And increasingly now, for problem sets, projects, and beyond, well, you just use libraries more often off the shelf so as to solve problems that surely other people have had before you. So how can I now use this library, ctype.h? Well, let me go back into my code. Let me include this among my header files here. I tend, just so I can skim things easily, I tend to alphabetize my headers, but that's not strictly necessary. But it allows me at a glance to realize, did I or did I not include something I need? Now let me go ahead and do this. It turns out if you read the documentation for the ctype library, there's a function wonderfully called if is lower that takes in a character as its argument, essentially, so s bracket I. And if that returns true, a Boolean value, if you will, well, I'm going to force it to lowercase. But I don't have to do this math anymore. Turns out in the ctype library, there's also a function called toUpper that takes a character as input, like s bracket I, and it just does the math for you so that you can abstract away the 32 thing and just know that someone else has solved that problem for you. Otherwise, I can leave my code unchanged down below because I'm not changing anything else. So if I do make uppercase now, and then /uppercase, DAVID with just a capital D, and now it still works. But if you read the documentation further, it turns out that toUpper is smart. If you pass in a character to toUpper that's lowercase, it obviously converts it to uppercase by doing that math. But if you pass in a character to toUpper that's already uppercase, the documentation you would see tells you that it leaves it unchanged. So I can tighten all of this up. I can get rid of the whole else. I can get rid of the whole if, and arguably now implement a program that's just as correct, but better designed. Why? Fewer lines of code, easier to read, lower probability of mistakes. Assuming the library is correct, it just makes it easier and faster for me now to write code. So if I now do one last time, make uppercase, enter, /uppercase, and type in my name, still working. But now notice we've whittled this down to far fewer lines of code, albeit using now this additional library. Questions then on how we did this? No? Well, even though this code, I dare say, is correct, it's not necessarily well designed just yet. In fact, there's one line of code one function call in this current implementation that's more inefficient than it needs to be. And allow me to draw our attention to this here, line 10, wherein we're calling Sterling. But we're calling it inside of this for loop, specifically inside of the condition. And why might that not necessarily be the best idea? Well, is the length of the string s changing ever? I mean, certainly not within the span of this loop. And so here we are within our for loop on line 10, 11, 12, and 13, asking on every iteration that same question. What's the length of s? What's the length of s? What's the length of s? And in turn, we're calling Sterling every time, even though we're getting back the same answer. So I dare say a better solution here would be to maybe figure out the length of s earlier on in my code and maybe declare a variable, or perhaps do something that's syntactically a little more elegant. And in fact, a very common design in a loop like this would be to declare not just one variable like I, but to actually declare a second variable called n, for instance, where n is just some number, set n equal to the length of s, but thereafter, inside of this condition, instead of calling Sterling of s again and again and again, what might I now do? I could instead just compare I against n itself, because n now will only be calculated once when it's initialized, just as I is initialized to 0, and thereafter we're going to be comparing I, which is changing, against n, which will not be, so it's going to be marginally more efficient by design. Now with
Yeah, Loco, I do find it funny that you think I am from the UK. They are a real thing there, because I'm from New Zealand, right? And we're like an off branch thing from the UK, and we have baked beans for breakfast too. That's really funny. You're fine. You're not the first person to mix up my accent. I don't have the typical Kiwi accent either, so like it's not a big deal. You're fine. You're being a European racist, actually fine. Fuck yeah, beans for breakfast. Baked beans are great. Like, it's probably a little, like, odd for you to hear that. What I find odd is because I currently live in Canada, right, buddy? So I'm not that far from you. But, because I'm just assuming you're from the States. Because generally, people who confuse my accent are from the States. You love baked beans, but you've never had them for breakfast. Really? I mean, they're pretty good, bud. You have them on toast. You put like a egg on top of it as well, or like bacon. Don't worry, they all sound the same. Fair. Like, New Zealanders sound so close to Australians. Like, I get confused when I hear them on like TV. Actually, I lie. I've had Scottish breakfast before, and they use baked beans. Oh, yeah? I really want to try haggis. I haven't tried it, and I want to try it. Apparently, before my, do I really say ancestors? I don't really know. I mean, technically they are. It just sounds like it's, like, older than, like, it really is. Apparently, some of my, like, bones, I guess, are from Scotland. US breakfast is just the same shit 24/7. Bro, yeah, you say that, right, Loco? You guys have, like, crazy amounts of different cereal. And, like, the quantity of your food is so much. It's nuts. Don't get me wrong, I like that, but it's nuts. I'm not the biggest cereal guy, but I do like porridge. So like in New Zealand we have something called like Wheat Bix, and like in the UK they probably have that too. I think Tom said it's a lot like shredded wheat. Except I think you guys only have like one block and we have like a bunch. Porridge do be yummy. Yeah, bro. I love porridge. Yeah, baked beans is great. But so, as I was trying to say before, thanks for reminding me, Tom. So I currently live in Canada, right? They have maple beans here. That blew my mind. Like, I know maple syrup is like huge here, and it's great. But like beans and maple syrup, like, what? What? Damn, you're hungry? Hi, hungry. I'm Josh. How much longer we got in this? Ooh, still like half an hour. This is a really funny point to like pause at, by the way. Maple and brown sugar on baked beans. That is so strange. I still like think of baked beans as like the like tomato sauce baked beans. Fire with brisket. Brisket's pretty amazing. I bet they go really well together. It's just like I'm so used to thinking of baked beans as like a breakfast thing that it messes with my brain a little bit.
That said, a good compiler could also recognize that there was this optimization possibility and maybe do it for us. But for now, best to get into the habit, best to develop the muscle memory for making those better design decisions yourselves. Questions then on how we did this? No? All right, a few final building blocks for the.
Okay, this is where I'm going to leave the lessons and change to gummies, alright? I'm not gonna overdo it. Because I've been at this for like 2 hours. And I'm worried I'll overdo it. And then not want to do it again later. Tomorrow we might be able to do, what do you call it? This EDX program that, Loco told me about. I'll have to have a look at it off stream. See, that's the difference. We don't eat with tomatoes. Well, no, so I say tomato sauce, but I don't mean like we actually put like ketchup or like tomato sauce on the beans. It's like already like combined. I don't really know what kind of sauce it is. I'm pretty sure it's tomato sauce. I've never like questioned it before. Yeah, don't overdo it yourself. Yeah. I've been jamming Elden Ring a lot, my friend. We're currently on the last boss. Check it out. They have multiple different classes, like pasta sauce. Yeah. Did I beat the fight? Not yet, Tom. Not yet. Very close. We ended a little early yesterday because I was tired. Tomato is also part of our baked beans recipes too, usually. Ah, okay, good. Good. It's not too strange then. So, if you guys don't... So, you guys do have baked beans, right? And you do eat them? You don't find that part weird? It's just having it for breakfast that you find weird. Yeah? Okay. I'm glad I'm right on that part. Why did you... Okay. So strange. But okay. My my stuff went weird for a second. Sorry, chat. These fools can speak for themselves respectfully. I'm in on baked beans anytime. Yeah, I like baked beans. Yeah, I'm very used to having it for breakfast. So, something you guys would probably find strange is that I assume you guys don't have tinned spaghetti, but we do, and sometimes people have that for breakfast on toast instead of baked beans. Now, I don't like tinned spaghetti, okay? And some really crazy people, at least in New Zealand, okay, will mix baked beans and, like, the tinned baked beans and the tinned spaghetti together and cook them. I am not a fan of tinned spaghetti. I will eat it if I am super mega hungry and I don't really have anything else. What the? It's alright, Loco. Spaghetti and baked beans? Yeah. For breakfast, by the way, on toast. We have spaghetti and hot dogs. Yeah, we have that too. We also have like the baked beans and like little hot dogs put together as well. Sometimes they just do like breakfast sausages instead. Beanie weenies, yeah. You're out of that one, Tom. I will be right back, okay? I need a pee so bad. Okay. We are back, Jack. Oh, Yahweh. Oh. I don't know if you've played Elden Ring before, Loco, but I am a huge fan. Oh. We're currently on the last boss of the DLC. It's been cool. I've been having a lot of fun with him. Haven't beat him yet. By the way, Tom, what the fuck? Whereabouts in the States? Can I guess California? Miami. Damn it! Makes sense. Not everybody's gonna be from California anymore. Do you like it there? Well, I assume you like it there, Loco. Oof. Look, so I was basing that... Motherfucker. No! I'm so sad. I might need to buy another controller. Bro, I like got this year. I'm so sad. If you were from Cali, you would be vegan. That's funny. So, I used to get a lot of people from California in my chat when I lived in New Zealand and I was streaming because of like the time that I would be streaming. So like I would stream, let's see, quite a bit. I would start stream quite a bit later than right now. I would start stream in about 4.5 hours. And so I would get all the night owls from California. Instead, they're probably attractive as fuck. Makes sense, but I'm guessing you're East Coast as well. I am... Oh, wait. Mr. Tom? I'm still getting used to whereabouts people are. I'm in Canada. Ohio is technically Midwest. Yeah. Things on like scale in terms of like how large the land is ridiculous since I got here, by the way. Ohio, what do you do there other than play with farm animals? Play with farm animals. And what part of Canada? I have some friends in Sudbury and Calgary. Ontario. I travel a tremendous amount, so I've luckily been able to spar my sheep the worst of it. Damn! You've been fighting sheep, Tom? Let's go! Hey, Shady. It is good to see you, bud. How was Deadpool yesterday? Don't give me spoilers, but I'm glad you got some popcorn, bud. And I think you got a drink, from what I saw. Poor sheeps. True. We have lots of sheeps in New Zealand if you ever want to visit, Tom. You can fight some sheep over there. Yo, Tom. Yeah. I'm still waiting on the, Radish update today, by the way, Tom. I did it. Was a great time Def watching. How yeah, buddy. Yeah, I know lots of people have said that they really enjoyed it. It's like a really good movie. I have not seen him do that move. That is a cool move! So, unfortunately, I've traveled 450 miles away from my house. Damn, we're gonna have to wait till you get back to take another photo, huh, Tom? Ugh. It'll have to do. We'll have to wait. I'm trying not to get spoiled for the movie. I don't know how long that's going to last. I've already seen, like... I've already seen, like, not a clip... Fuck! Fuck! Not a clip, but... a... What do you call it? A still from the movie. Very glad they included it. Came up on Twitter and I was like, oh damn, okay. That's pretty cool. Stream crashed? You're good, Tom, you're good. I'm legitimately surprised that hit me, but okay! Video game? Okay, I think a big part of the movie requires you not to be spoiled, otherwise it loses a bit of its luster. I bet. I bet. I did see that, what do you call it? It got like a 98% audience score so far on Rotten Tomatoes. What movie? The new Deadpool one, bud. It's good. It is. From what I've said, what I've seen. Fuck, which is nothing. Just everybody being like, yay. I really want to watch it. Fuck. I'm a little bit... If you're wondering why I'm talking like that, it's because I'm a little bit far away from, like, the nearest cinema. I live out in the Wops. I, like, live... Yeah. I live quite a bit away. Wops? The fuck? Just means like... I don't know what it stands for. I just assume like wilderness sort of thing. Far away from civilization. I don't know, it's a common term in New Zealand. I'd probably say in New Zealand too, in Australia too. Fuck me! Does Kate know you be living in where... You know what? I forgot it was even called that. You see, hopefully it'll be able to be streamed soon. Yep. I agree. I know Kate really wants to see it. Fuck! I wonder how close I got him to... thing break there. Posture break. It felt like I was close, but I guess not. Ooh. Anyway, what'd you guys get up to today? Ah. I still have some jalapeno chips, chat. It's great. Big fan of these. Drove to New Jersey yesterday, driving back tonight. For work, right, buddy? Are you already on your way back, or have yet to ship off? I've been watching She-Ra with Kate Chat. And ironically, I like it. Trust that I'll never go to New Jersey willingly. This place is ass. Is it, buddy? Is New Jersey close to New York or what? They touch? I thought so. I just didn't want to seem like an idiot. Like cousins who don't know it. Jesus. Huh? How about you guys? How's the weekend so far? Pretty good. It's a long weekend for me. I have tomorrow off as well. It's so different and like chill over here compared to what I'm used to. I get like so much time off from my work. It's crazy. Long as fuck stream today or tomorrow night. Um, I we had two really long ones recently and a short one yesterday. So like Thursday, Friday? Yeah, Thursday, Friday, I like streamed for like 7 hours each. Don't know about today. Kate's a little bit under the weather. So I've been making sure she's okay. We're having so much time off because of the rabies and you don't like it. Well, you work a shit ton, Tom, so I understand that. That would, like, really cut into your paycheck. Oh my god. What is up, the gym? A real life Florida man? What do you mean? Oh, you mean Loco? Hey, Jimothy. Oh. Oh, I didn't... Bugger. Have you ever watched Super Bros / Super Wog? Is Super Wog the guy that does the skits? He's like Australian, right? I think I've seen him do like a real estate one before. I did really well there, right, Shady? Yeah? It is? Hell yeah. Netflix told me it was top show in New Zealand. It made me question your guys' humor. Bro, we have very non-PC humor, Loco. In New Zealand, okay? We say some fucked up shit. All the fucking time. Sorry if you don't like swearing. You're Chilean and Puerto Rican. Oh. You're Cuban? Hell yeah, buddy. Be careful, Germ. There's a decent chance they're Hispanic and you'd hate to talk shit about your own. Draw your weapons. I'm not very good at drawing, but I can try. I could probably draw like a stick man with like a sword. Would you say stick man or would you like say stickman? Like... What do you guys think? The show was stupid, to be honest, but we do... What we do in the shadows is a blessing from New Zealand. Yeah? You ever watched, Flight of the Conchords, Loco? Also, the two, well, actually, I don't know who you would consider the main characters in The Boys anymore. But, Butcher is from New Zealand, and so is Homelander. They're both Kiwis. Do it. Both? Yeah. Still got a fat ass. Boring ass white dude. Thick thighs and a fat ass. Hell yeah, Tom. They don't have Kiwi accents in the show. You're right, they don't. Butcher literally sounds like he's from the UK. Fucking diabolical. Never watched it, but I do like the Jermaine Clemens work. Super funny guy. Yeah. I think Jermaine is in Maui. I think he's the crab. if I remember correctly. They got the two most uncommon actors to play common accents. What I thought was really funny, right? Because Homelander in The Boys, the actor Anthony Starr, he in New Zealand, he's part of a he was part of a show, because the show is obviously finished. Part of a show that he played twins in the show, which I thought was like really funny. Considering like I think Ryan, his son, in the show is actually twins. Like there's actually two of them. Do you know who Rhys Darby is, Loco? Although I haven't, like, seen him in anything for quite a while. He's a Kiwi as well. And... oh, crap. He's a director. Oh, I'm trying to think of his name. He did, a couple of the Thor movies, although the last one didn't go over so well. Tyler Perry behavior. Do you guys call yourselves Kiwis because of the bird? All right, here we go. We're up for the New Zealand lesson, chat. Here we go. Okay, so yes and also no. So we originally got our nickname during World War I or II. I forget which one. I think it might have been World War I. Hard to say because I can't personally remember. It's during one of the world wars. Anyway, during the world wars, right? All the allies had were providing different things to the war effort, and one of the things that New Zealanders provided was shoe polish, like shoe nugget, right? And it had a Kiwi on it. So that's how we got our nickname. So the bird then became like our national symbol and everything, right? After that. Also, funnily enough, the kiwi fruit that you guys eat, it is imported from New Zealand, but it's not originally from there. And it was named that because originally it's a Chinese gooseberry, right? But when we tried to ship it to the States back in well, a while back, you guys didn't like the name. But when we changed it to kiwi, because it's kind of fuzzy like one, and that's our like nickname, you guys liked the idea of kiwi fruit better, so it just stuck. You love kiwis? Well, see, there you go. You should try golden kiwi fruit. They're a lot sweeter, by the way. They don't have the tartness that the green kiwis do. Just for reference, they're great. They started making red ones before I left. I'm pretty sure they're just... They taste similar to the gold ones. They're sweet, but I forget. I didn't have enough to really, understand them. It's because that name sucks. The fuck kind of name is Chinese gooseberry? Bro, I mean, look... They brought them over, and we just have a really good climate for it. No VC. Honestly, bud, completely forgot. So basically, us Americans didn't like the Chinese name and said, fuck it, let's copy the New Zealand. Yeah, well, because... So if you get kiwi fruit, right? They do come from New Zealand, generally. because we import them all over. Or export them all over. I don't know, whatever the term is. But we like send them out. Alden Josh, the one true elder. Thank you, Bluff. It's good to see you, buddy. It's been a minute. Yeah, we love kiwi fruit, man. Like so much so that we like make kiwi fruit juice over in New Zealand, like mixed with aloe vera. It's really nice. I don't know if you guys have it here. Never even bothered to look. I say here, like I'm in Canada. Like I know you guys have like everything almost in the States, and you could probably get it like from a specialty store. That sounds fire. It is. There's green kiwi fruit juice with aloe vera, and there's golden kiwi fruit juice as well. Never seen a red kiwi, but I do know about the gold ones. Yeah. So it's not literally like red on the outside. It's like pinkish on the inside. Hello, Jim. You had no idea they'd be red or gold? Yeah, well, it's more of a recent thing. I don't think they're ready for the States yet, because they're still working on them.
Excuse me? What did you just say? Something isn't ready for the States?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure it took a while to get, like, the gold ones for you guys. Because, like, it's the amount that we would have to, like, get to. Because, look, I mentioned this to, like, people in chat before, that the size of your fruit is nuts. Absolutely nuts. You guys get the biggest stuff. Like, these are the biggest kiwi fruit that I've ever seen in the store. And I'm from New Zealand, okay? So we take all the big ones and we ship them overseas, apparently, because we don't get shit that big. I saw, like, the tomatoes that are over here. Holy shit, they're huge. You guys, fruit and veg is, like, massive.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I have nothing to compare to.
Yeah, well, if you ever visit New Zealand, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Export
Here,
Josh.
I will write that down.
Never seen a, that sounds fun. I had kiwi tea. Oh, whoa, that's pretty cool. We have pretty decent chocolate too. If you could ever get your hands on like Whitaker's chocolate, that's pretty great. And ice cream, like generally anything dairy in New Zealand, loco. And I tell chat all the time that we make the best meat pies. So if you go for like a steak and cheese pie in New Zealand, they're yum. Although that probably sounds strange to you, having meat in a pie.
Well, I mean, yeah, you say you're the best at meat pie, but I don't know anywhere else that does meat pie besides maybe Australia.
Yeah, and I think the UK does.
Really? The UK has meat pie?
We got those shepherd's pie. No, different loco. Shepherd's pie is not the same as a steak and cheese pie.
Yeah, they're two different things.
Way different. I'll show you a picture.
Like comparing apples to oranges, you plebe. Also, yes, Bluff is right. We do got them big guns. I don't though. My arms are too not swole. I haven't worked out in a bit.
Just put steak and cheese in a shepherd's pie. Okay, so like generally shepherd's pie is not like fully like, it doesn't generally have like a top for one, right? And it generally like, it doesn't always have like pastry in it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. This is a steak and cheese pie, okay? And we have like bakeries everywhere in New Zealand. They are such a huge thing. Like, we are so into pies that you can get these at petrol stations. Like, if you go somewhere in New Zealand and you can't find a pie in any, like, town or place, like, I would be, like, amazed. There is no way that you can't find a pie anywhere in, like, in any town. Or, like, even, like, the dairy, which would be, like, your guys' 7-Eleven.
Oh, well, now I have to write that down too. Are you kidding me?
What? What do you have to write down?
Fucking whatever you were saying about 7-Eleven.
Oh, because we don't have those at all. They're not a thing in New Zealand. We have dairies, right? Like our one like brand of like dairy, I guess, would be like a Foursquare, but they're kind of going like extinct-ish. There's still a few of them around.
Okay.
Corner store? Yeah. Yeah. A circular hot pocket? I've not tried a hot pocket. If you guys make it like this, then that's amazing. We also do bacon and egg pies, right? Which sounds like a quiche, but it's not. Similar.
Sounds yummy.
It is great. I will give you an address to somewhere in New Zealand if you ever go for the best best bacon and egg pie I've ever had.
All right.
It has bacon and egg and cheese, and it's like so rich, it's unbelievable. But like it's yeah, only have one. Don't do the mistake I did and have two. You'll feel sick.
Okay. You're just weak, Josh. I can
No.
handle it.
No. No. It's so
Listen,
flavorful. Flavorful? Flavorful.
I'm American. I know what flavor is,
Okay.
Josh.
Okay, I mean, look. If you think you can, go for it. You will have two, Tom? Okay, what?
That's not a request, it's a demand.
Okay, okay. If you know what, so we also have something that's come through in the last like 10 to 5 years, Loco. I don't remember when it started happening, but we also have butter chicken pies now.
What the hell is that?
So if you've ever had butter chicken before,
Uh-huh.
that and a pie.
Okay, alright.
It's
Fine.
like you could find like a decent steak and cheese or mince and cheese in New Zealand anywhere. The butter chicken pies like is either really hit or really a miss. There's no in between.
Well, I mean, how could you fuck up butter chicken in a pie?
Easily, apparently. It's apparently pretty hard to do. Jim can't, but my 100 kg ass could. We got
I'll have you
obesity
know it's
probably
wrong.
for a reason here in the US. Ours is pretty high too. Look.
And have you seen me eat, Tom? I eat fast as shit. So if you put like a 2 whole bacon and egg pies right in front of me, I could probably finish that lickety split. Smack of the lips. Hip dips. I don't know where I was going with that.
Oh, and you would have to try, I'd have to look up, like, somewhere that would specifically do, like, French fries with chicken salt. Because that is fire. And you guys are missing out.
I just realized I never wrote chicken salt on the list last week. I gotta do that before tomorrow.
I brought some from New Zealand, Loco, and, my girlfriend has been, like, obsessed with it ever since I brought it over. Chicken salt? Yeah. It's an Australian, thing. But, because we're so close, we get it as well. They put it on French fries instead of salt. Makes them really yummy. We call them chips in New Zealand, though. Or hot chips.
Oh, so
Is it made from chickens? No.
Chicken.
It's actually not made from chickens. It's salt for chickens. To put
I don't
on
know about
chicken.
you,
Which
but
is really
I just
funny.
Googled it.
I only found that out, like, recently, too. I always thought it was like salt made from chickens.
I'm getting two conflicting results on Google. One is saying it's made from real chickens, and the other is just listing off the regular ingredients. Very confusing. They just don't want us to find out, so we don't make it better.
Maybe. Here in Florida, you're eating chicken, you get lemon pepper. Oh yeah, lemon pepper's pretty good. You wouldn't have the US any other way, Tom? Hell yeah.
Sir, high obesity statistics, my favorite.
Your guys' donuts are like way better than ours, Loco. Like, it's not even close. But goddamn, are they sweet.
Well, I mean, yeah. Why are you eating a donut if you don't want it sweet, silly?
What's
At that
your
point, just eat a bagel.
Yeah. Hello. Bagels aren't really a thing in New Zealand.
Which is a
Yeah.
problem. You need to fix that right now.
However, funnily enough, bagel seasoning, that is.
That's cooked. Why would they do that to me?
I don't know. I do find that funny.
I'll say though, if you ever come to New York, right, for whatever reason,
Oh yeah.
just try a bagel.
Oh, for sure.
You've not had good bagels until you've had the bagels here. They're crazy.
I believe you. I'd also want pizza from New York, obviously.
Yeah, I gotta get that good old cardboard dollar slice.
Y'all ever have a Luther burger? So damn good. No, what is that,
Never
bud?
heard of it.
You look up New Zealand desserts and I see lolly cake. What the fuck is that? Oh, you guys don't have that? That's funny.
I've never heard of that, no.
There's pavlova as well, bud. Pavlova is a big Kiwi thing. Pavlova is meringue cake. Difficult to make. We get it at Christmas.
And now I gotta make that for my Christmas.
There's also trifle, but trifle is like not unique to New Zealand. So lolly cake, how do I describe lolly cake? I guess I'll bring it up on like Google so you guys can see it. I don't know how to describe it. It's not marshmallow, but it's not.
Tom, what the fuck are you talking about?
But it's kind of like lolly cake. I mean, it's kind of like marshmallow, but it's not. How do I? So here, it looks like ass. It's got so it's got like coconut and stuff. It's not like always the best. Maybe it is marshmallow. Yeah, it does make it look like marshmallow with those. I would not.
Condensed Lucky Charms marshmallows.
I would probably not recommend this for people because it's not as sweet as you would like think it is.
I mean, yeah, how could it not be super sweet given all those fun little colors?
I'm not the biggest fan of coconut in general, so like I might be a little bit biased, but I don't think it's all that great. Pavlova though, that's great. It's so goddamn American it hurts your arteries to look at. Why no bagels? Did New Zealand get rid of all the Jews on the low? Jesus.
No. Can't say that. No.
No, we did not.
No, Tom, I think it's just because we have a lot of Jews, not that they have too little.
We have juice in New Zealand.
But is it enough juice?
We have just juice. That's pretty good.
I don't know, man. The juice boxes I was drinking as a kid probably slap harder.
I don't know. We have just juice bubbles. I know you definitely don't have that.
What the hell is that? Just juice bubbles? What?
Yeah, exactly. See, you don't even know like the amazing taste that we have in New Zealand. Okay, so imagine this, right? You have some juice.
Okay.
Like it could be mango juice, it could be orange juice, it could be passion fruit juice, it could be so many kinds of different kinds of like juices like mixed together. All right,
Okay.
you don't know. You don't know what kind of juice it could be, and you're like, you know what this juice needs? It needs some bubbles. So what you do is you put some Sprite with the juice. All right, half and half.
What? What the fuck? Excuse me?
It's better than you think it is, but yeah, so back we used to mix it like manually, right? And then Just Juice like got like either got bought out by Coca-Cola in New Zealand or like made a deal with them, and now they actually do the same thing. They put them together so you could just buy it in a bottle. Convenience, basically. Why not sparkling water then? Because we like this wait, so in New Zealand, Loco, this will drive you nuts. We call Sprite lemonade, even though to you guys, it's not the same thing at all.
Well, yeah, lemonade is not carbonated. Sprite is lemon lime soda.
Yes, I get why you're saying this. But we would also call the lemonade that you guys drink lemonade, okay?
Ick. Get that out of here.
But if we were going to, like, ask somebody, if we were going to offer someone Sprite, you would say Sprite or lemonade, right? Because to us it's the same thing. But if we were to offer somebody the lemonade that you guys have, we would say, like, lemonade, or, like, lemonade, with lemons.
Yeah, because sometimes your lemonade just doesn't have lemons. What's up with that?
Yeah, sometimes it's just in a green bottle. Fuck, my accent came out then. I heard that. You just...
I've always been more a ginger ale person anyway.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. There's an Australian ginger beer. What's it called? Bundaberg. They're pretty good. Yeah, they are. I refreshed on Luther Burger and they be okay. I've had a couple and it always sounds better than it is. What the fuck? Why not just sparkling water? Yeah. That's confusing. Yeah, well, yep. Yep. Not gonna disagree with you there, my friend.
New Zealand is just a very confusing place. Let's put it at that.
It's a goofy place. So, like, what you guys would... Well, so, like, what do you would call stuff like candy, I guess, right? If I say lollies?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So if you were to say candy for us, like, we would question whether you meant, like, a candy cane or, like, lollies. We'd probably lean more often on, like, the candy cane is what you meant.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know, maybe they call ginger ale and ginger beer the same thing, New Zealand, Tom. Who's to know for sure?
Nah, we don't. We actually call them different.
Of all the fucking things, don't. This is the one.
No, yeah, we actually use different words for those, yeah. You guys just have candy canes year round? Yeah. It's not, like, super common to have them, but yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Candy canes are delicious.
I'm not a big fan of mint. At least not in the way of, like, mint with, like, sweets. Now, you're gonna think I'm weird, Loco. Alright. But it's better than you expect. Well, actually, I don't know. So we have lamb in New Zealand, right? And having like mint sauce or mint jelly with it is so good.
Mint with lamb?
Yeah, mint sauce or like mint jelly. Mint jelly is so good. It's sweet, by the way. It's not just like peppermint like on like a thing. It's bomb. Yeah. With lamb? Yeah, bud. Mint jelly is so good.
I mean, it sounds pretty good.
It is. Yeah, let's look up pavlova. This, okay? Now, this may look, well, also Lamingtons are pretty great. I saw, yeah, there's one. But like, they're Australian made. So this looks like it's like broken or whatever, but that's really normal because to make a pavlova is really tough in their general. I don't know if it's like meant to be a little bit like that or if it's meant to be like, oh no, that's got cream all the way around it. Then yeah, it's pretty much always got like the outside like that because it's like meringue, right? And if you're gonna make a meringue cake that large, it's gonna have some problems with it. Quite often we have like blueberries and strawberries and stuff and kiwi fruit on it. Blueberry is not as common in New Zealand. Lamb is good, gotta find somewhere that makes that.
For real.
So mint jelly, it'll come in like a jar, like you would for jam. We have a Greek place near us that makes fresh lamb gyros, and oh my god, they're so tasty. Yeah, lamb is my favorite meat. It's so good.
I don't even know what my favorite meat is. They're all just so tasty.
If you can't tell, Loco, we love food here. Your favorite's pork? My dad is a huge pork fan. I like sweet and sour pork, but I'm not the biggest pork fan in general. Oh. Josh, I am your father. Yeah? Oh, damn, that's impressive. How did you manage that, Tom? Pork is great. Cuban specialty. Yeah? What's some good Cuban food then, buddy? Let me hear it.
Yeah, recommend me some too, because I need more Cuban food in my house.
Mr. Jim. Oh, bugger. Can you see the
Yes.
snooze button on the thing or no?
Oh yeah, I got you.
Thank you. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, yeah. Did I tell you bluff oysters, Jim?
You did.
Okay. They're huge. And they're great.
Yeah, on the list right now, I currently have bluff oysters, dim sum, Milo, eat some ice cream, small ass tomatoes, dairies, bacon and egg pie, Josh will give address, butter chicken pie, fries with chicken salt, pavlova, just juice bubbles, mint- and mint jelly with lamb.
Hell yeah.
That
yeah.
fucking name, dude. Just juice bubbles.
It's so good.
It's juice and Sprite. How is that good?
You don't understand. You don't understand. It's so good.
I do understand. I love juice. I love Sprite. Putting them together will not work.
It does. It does work. Pork shoulder or leg with some black rice, mojo and yuca and some. Is it? I literally don't know how to read the last one. Is it tostones? I feel like I messed that up real bad.
Holy shit. He pronounced it right. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
that was
He
good.
did it.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, Jim thinks I say jalapenos wrong.
Oh god, stop it. We're not getting into this right now. Had enough of your shit. This jalapeno is garbage.
Ah! When I was traveling in the South, I lived in food trucks in SoCal, NM, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. Oh, yeah. I hear the
Yum.
South has like super good barbecue.
The South is like barbecue central, man.
Yeah. I've never been to the States, so I don't know. I just have seen like some my dad is really into like food shows and stuff. And so he would watch like these barbecue competitions and like it's like all of it like goes on in the south of like the States. So like yeah, that food seems so nice.
It is.
Uh Creole food from Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, etc. is god tier too. Yeah. Yeah, Creole food is fantastic. Texas barbecue is central. Oh, no, sorry. Texas is barbecue central. Oh, okay, gotcha.
For real. Wouldn't
There's-
know though, I don't live in Texas.
Yeah, are you sure?
Shut up.
There's only one place that has the best barbecue, and the next civil war will be over which place that is. Yeah. That's pretty funny. Wee. Yeah, I need like an AI version of like Trump and like I was gonna say Biden, but I guess Camilla like yelling at each other over who has the best barbecue. And whoever like comes out on top is the one that wins.
Whoever has the best barbecue will become the president.
Yep. Gotta say, I've had some mean barbecue in Houston. Yeah? It's too bad they don't have, like, barbecue in the airport there, because I would have got some. That's about, like, the closest I've ever been, I guess. One of my flights did stop me off in Houston before coming
Wait,
here.
what? I thought you got stopped in LA.
I did, but this is, like, last year.
Oh, okay. I just realized a week left, Josh.
What's a week left?
August 5th. The 2-year gym anniversary.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Gross.
Bugger. Although that was really interesting seeing the game bug out and like flash the guy right there. Radan, sorry. Do you think you could hit the snooze again, my friend?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Give me a quick second.
Alright, quick second, go. Alright, time's up, you fucking liar. I don't know though. In terms of like, I need to go to the south for some actual barbecue because I've only ever driven through it to get to Florida. And by driven through it, I mean like only the East Coast southern states. So like all my, I don't know, Paige keeps telling me I am a fucking hick from Texas with intense southern energy, and I do not understand it whatsoever. Yeah, well, the furthest I've been south. It's definitely not the south, but okay, let me reword that. Also, Josh's category is still learning, or is that his title? I don't remember. Yeah, furthest I've ever been is the Florida Keys for a Boy Scout high adventure trip. Florida Sea Base. Have you guys ever heard of it? It was cool. I didn't really get to eat much. I didn't get to eat like any authentic food there. We just had to kind of make what we knew. And there was one day though that we got to go on land to John Pennekamp State Park in Key Largo. I actually got some real food for the first time in like a week. It was just some southern chicken tenders and fries. Some of the best chicken tenders I've ever had in my life. I know, I might, because I have family, right, that lives down in North Carolina. So if I ever go down south again, it'd probably be to meet with them or go to like a convention in Florida. I I don't yeah, it was like I had always known they existed, but I was never close to them. Like the first time I had met any of them, like I had seen any of their faces was November of 2020 when we had Thanksgiving. When obviously you can't meet up with your family members because you know fucking 2020, bad no disease going around. So that was a lot of fun, I guess. You should try and try them. I've already been trying, dude. Like I keep saying to myself, the second I turn 18, I'm getting the fuck out of America. Like, no offense to America, of course. It's just there's so many places I would much rather be right now. I've always thought, like, I've had a bit of a game plan now, like maybe a year and a half on where I'd be. I guess you could say, like, I'm definitely going to go to New Zealand, right? That is a given. I have established that even before I met Josh, because there's just a bunch of cool shit to see in New Zealand. Then, if I want to take up more of my Spanish speaking ability, I would probably move to Spain for a bit. Because they always say, right? You learn the language of the best when you're surrounded in nothing but that language. And luckily for me, English is not very like English proficiency is not very high in Spain. Like in terms of the rest of Europe, like Sweden, Netherlands, Denmark, you can pretty much get by with just English. Like Spanish is a lot like Spain, I mean not Spanish, is a lot like less. So I'd actually need to try to pick up something and it'll be fun for sure. Ireland is also a good place to be, I think. Like they like the only problem I have ever seen come out of Ireland is its absurd cost of living cuz it's just that fucking amazing. Some like there's just so much cool shit. The only problem is how good it is cuz now it's expensive as shit. Just joined the stream and I can't confirm the Spain thing. Yeah, see there we go. Rizov got my back. I don't know, I feel like with my knowledge of English and Spanish, I want to see how I'd fare in Italy, right? Because just for fun. Like, try to have like, someone talks to me in Italian. I'll just be like, yeah. Germany would be a cool destination. They've also got, I don't know, Germany, every time I picture it in my head, it's very yellow and orange. Because all the pictures I see of it are at night for some reason. So I always picture it as like that color scheme. Portugal? Yeah, Portugal is also a big destination. But I don't know if I could. I don't know. I'd feel like I'd fare better in Italy than Portugal. I don't know. The language is just a lot. I've I've heard it like a lot of times, and I'm like, what the fuck am I hearing right now? And also like there's like Portugal I've heard is a lot more dangerous than a lot of other like Western European nations because like you like take 10 steps out of Lisbon and you are already dead. It's easier for me to speak in Italian while in Spain. Well, yeah, that makes sense because Italian and Spanish are in the same language family. They're very close. Well, English's main Romance influences are from French, so it'd be weird, I guess. I don't know how to say it. It just, like, there's a lot more of a disconnect in those languages. Although, for some reason, English does have the word umbrella, which is a literal fucking loan word from Italian. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how ombrello came over, and that was a horrible pronunciation, and got to England, but sure. England just to stab yes, yeah, totally. I mean, nah, you know what I'm gonna do? If I ever go to a country, I'm going to go to all the places like people fucking hate you to go to, like, oh, here's a picture of me smiling my ass off, about to get stabbed right in front of the local chippy. And here's me in the poorest section of Birmingham. Yeah, that. See, I'm just the best at languages, first off. Yeah, yeah, though, I get it. I'd say Italy's probably better because they have a lot more. Oh, because I literally was just in France, like a few weeks ago, like from the 1st to the 8th. And even though I don't speak like a word of French, I like only English and Spanish, I didn't have a problem with just English because most of the places there, because I stayed in Paris for the whole thing, and I was in Paris, Versailles, and Chartres. Um, like all the staff I ever spoke to, like at restaurants, my hotel, they all spoke English. Like, there was one night I ordered Uber Eats, expecting, they're not gonna speak English. But no, I didn't have a problem. Because they, like, spoke just enough of it for me to understand them and, give them the information they needed. Hey, tell this friendly phrase, this friendly group of guys, nothing will go wrong. Hell yeah. Hang on, there's a fucking, I have to Google this just to make sure I'm right. Okay, yeah, I am. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, just go up to like pro tip guys, if you ever go to Japan, go up to your tour guide if you have one and tell them "보고는 진신 와치사이." Just, cuz I mean, what's up? What's up, buddy? You're doing good. Yeah. In France, they had to call the one guy in the hotel that knew English. Damn. Well, I feel like also the hotel I stayed in was a bit of a special case because, like, if you walked into it, it was part of the Ibis chain, I guess. I don't know if that exists anywhere else besides. I'm assuming no. That it would be just France. But they're like a very, very touristy hotel. No shame to the person who organized it, but like walking in, it was like, okay, because like obviously you're in Paris, right? So a lot of the things are in French, but all of the marketing displayed around the hotel, like all the text was in French, but all of the marketing was in English. So, like, my fucking room key even said on it, "You got the key," in English. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, English is the official language of Belize, isn't it? Here, let me Google that real quick. Belize official language. Yeah, I was right. It is English. Yeah, so I imagine you wouldn't have much of a problem. But then again, Belize is Central America, so obviously there'd be a lot of like indigenous language influences. Like for example, like Mexico, Guatemala, those countries, along with Belize, would also have like a strong tradition of keeping their indigenous languages alive. So I'd imagine, like, obviously they'd speak English and Spanish, because I mean, come on, who doesn't? Okay, I shouldn't say that, because obviously that's the official language, you know, that's what everyone would speak when you have to know the same language, like for business and shit. But yeah, that's my take on it. Belize City especially was easy, but we were staying in Orange Walk for the month. It was a bit harder. I don't think I'll go around saying that. Nah, you better, man. I promise you, it'll be so worth it once you once you make it to Japan and say that to your tour guide. I don't know. I keep hearing shit though about Japan, right? Can we talk about this for a sec? No, I have my now that the wheels are spinning in my head. Japan, right? Seems just so cool traveling to it, but dude, living in it is like a whole nother story that I will never ever indulge in. Cause like some of the shit Japanese people go through on their day by day is fucking horrible. Like their work weeks, like literally having different stations, train stations for men and women, like the need for that is crazy. Like they literally have a word now for when men grope women on the train.
Huh?
I think it's like chikan or something. That was a horrible pronunciation, but that's like they literally have a term for that, and that's fucked. Everyone spoke their version of Creole. Took us a week or two to catch on to local lingo and be able. Yeah, well, that was kind of what I was going for with that whole Spanish English Belize bit. Like, I'd imagine, like, once you get used to it and the people get used to you, like, it won't become that much an issue. Oh, hi, Josh. We were just talking about fun things. Like, yeah. Per se, carnival, broccoli, lots of other foods, confetti, masquerade, awkward. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. But again,
Yeah.
like, there's definitely some words from Italian in English, but, like, obviously, most of its Romance influence is French, because, you know, Norman invasions, William the Conqueror, whatever, what have you. I don't know, I couldn't really name, like, Italian words that are in English unless they were Roman. And, like, it'd be obvious, like, for example, virus, and that's generally a word I point to as, like, Latin influence on English. Okay, Josh, you can stop making a reaction video to my conversation now. That'd be very nice of you.
No. No, you're doing good. Keep going.
Okay, fine. What the fuck was I thinking about? I forgot. Shit. I was talking about Italian, Latin influences on the English language. That's it.
Hey, Buzz. Hi to you too.
I remember I took like one thing of German on Duolingo, and it's like weird because I don't really think about like where words come from, like if they're like Germanic or Romance, unless I actually, you know, put my mind to that first. So I'm taking this fucking German class, and I'm like, holy shit, I can read literally everything right now. Like one of the I remember specifically one of the example sentences they gave me were I drink a coffee, which is just I drink coffee. I was like, hell yeah. getting pretty good at picking up on stuff like that. But there's one guy named David. Even the other locals told us they barely understand him. Apparently, he was the backwood hick of the town. There's always one, man. Always one.
You know?
Damn it, Josh, have you run out of fucking chips yet? Running out of things here.
No, I haven't.
Grr, anger, discontent. Speaking of anger and discontent, actually, any of you listen to Gorillas here? Besides Kate? They make good music. I like
Yeah.
them.
We're gonna bring up Daft Punk next.
I mean, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you guys ever listen to Daft Punk? They make good music. I love them.
Uh-huh.
I know, I had Moopy over the other day. I just listened to Random Access Memories. That was a fun little time.
Can't make
Yeah.
yourself enjoy them. Oh damn! Fight!
Death for Berry Boy. Wait, but who are we talking about? Resolve Gorillas or Daft Punk? Because either of which I will punch you in your stupid little face for.
Jesus!
Because you say you've tried, but my advice would be, if you don't like them, you should try again.
Yep. Which one of them sings that song?
What?
You said you should try again. Listening to their songs, right? Which one of them has that song?
Both. They've both made a song called Again.
They really?
No, Josh, I'm fucking around. No.
That would be funny. Look, I'm just saying, they made one called, like, Around the World.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if they called it again, I wouldn't be surprised.
Fuck you, Tom. I'm not that short.
Yeah. Doesn't need to be a full ladder, just a step ladder.
Fuck off. Fuck right off. This is rude as fuck.
I've never.
Can't believe it.
It's Gorilla's Buzz? That's okay, bro. I know it's not for
L.
everyone.
Alright, then what are our thoughts on Weird Al Yankovic?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. What are our thoughts, Josh? Give
He's
us
pretty
some
weird.
thoughts. He's pretty weird. I don't know. I mean, when I brought him up for guilty pleasures, I more meant like no one will ever admit they unironically listen to Weird Al if they do. Like he's only ever mentioned in passing, or like, oh yeah, I love Amish Paradise and White Nerdy. Like me though, I have a genuine Weird Al playlist going right now. He makes bangers. The one I've been playing the most lately probably would be Hardware Store or eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Buzz would need a ladder to hit me. Yes, sir. What an L. See, Kate doesn't count in this. Okay, Tom? I feel like if Kate did end up squaring up with either of us, she would just pull out Claudia. That's outside influence.
Claudia is pretty, like, wild, that's fair.
Exactly.
Unfair advantage. Claudia wins.
Like the second Kate, like feels threatened by a punch, like she'll just immediately like whip out Claudia like from her pocket.
not that good in American fields and bald eagles measurements, but like, you think you're 5'1", 5'2"? Okay.
L.
Uru.
Short
Definitely
gang.
Uru.
I mean, hey, though, let's all be glad we are not the height of my mom.
Yeah.
Have you seen my mom, Josh?
Yeah, I have.
Exactly.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember. Like,
Uh,
I remember seeing her in the car, driving you, sitting down and stuff. I don't remember what she was like standing.
okay, so for reference, you know how I'm, like, short, right?
Sure.
I am nearly a whole head taller than my mom.
Oh, damn!
She is, like, short as fuck. That's where I get my height from.
One of my
Yeah.
best friends in high school was very, very short. Or is very, very short. I still talk to him.
Was he pissed off all the time?
No! Very loud personality.
Well, I mean, yeah, you gotta bring yourself attention somehow when people can't even see you.
Damn.
You're Romanian, Buzz? And so it's like 158 centimeters, like, about 5'1", 5'2". If my rounding of centimeters to inches is right, that's about 5'1", 5'2".
Dun Dun's burp? No worries, bud. It's a 178 is 5'10". That's about my height. Oh. Lucky. Yeah, man. Bug. Peace out, Paige and the man in the Discord chat with Josh. Yeah, that's Jim. He just went off for food anyway. You have a good night, alright, Loco? It was fun talking to you, man. Yo, catch you tomorrow on some more code. Hell yeah, bro. You have a good night, buddy. Who's Paige? He's talking to you, Tom. To be fair, it says Paige husband first. You silly sausage. Here we go. Oh, dodged. Huh. Okay. So 1, 2, and then the third one is the one that hits. Shit. 1, 2. Oh, actually, 2 might have hit. 1, 2. Yeah, 2 did hit. Oh shit. I thought I could dodge it if I go all the way left. Or right. I didn't think it really mattered. But like, huh. I am so confuzzled. Anyway, I've been working till 2 a.m. for basically 4 days right now. Oh, damn. I have other things to do, but I can't find the time because I'm always sleeping till 3 or 4. Time to work. You can't. So have you got to head off, Buzz? It's alright if you've got to go, bro. Hopefully you're making some decent money, at the very least. You were talking to me about a tournament that was coming up as well. Have you done that already, Buzz? Or is it about to happen? You're not tired? That's the problem? Oh, bro. That sucks, man. What time is it for you now? I've been, I've started a new thing, Buzz, where I'm gonna be doing slightly earlier streams sometimes with some coding. It's been pretty fun so far. So far, just learning. That didn't repost? Bugger me. You wake up late due to those shifts? It's almost 3 a.m. Oh, bugger, bro. I get it, dude. Usually I work a boatload and it's a drag. Take care of yourself. If it gets too bad, definitely take a day off if you can. Yeah. My dad does shift work like that. The tournament went badly, underperformed a bit, but that's whatever. Ah, that sucks, bro. think that did better with me, like, cycling inwards. I need the money and they pay extra after 11. Yeah, we're saving for a house. There's always room in the wallet for a few extra bills. This plus paperwork that I need to get done, plus long distance relationship. I need to find the time to fit a 4-hour train ride to see my GF once every 2 weeks at least, plus other stuff. Really hard to yeah, bro. That's rough. Does she come to visit you, Buzz? Potential solution. Yeah. Doesn't have to be all the time. Cocaine. That is another solution, I guess. But that also creates more bills, Tom. That's not a really good bill to have. True, it's a rich man's toy. Do meth instead. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Alternatively, meth. Yeah, Tom? Like, at the moment, I don't have family doctor because you retired basically the doctor you go to when you feel sick. And you don't pay the visits and also the one you ask for work permits if you feel sick. Oh, yeah. That's, GP. Yeah, general practitioner. Gotcha. So, I am feeling sick. If I'm feeling sick tomorrow, I have no way of not going to work. Oof. Do you have to have, like, a sick thing, my friend? If you have the day off? You have to do it. We call it a general practitioner. Never mind. Yeah, we call it a GP. For short. Don't know how you call them. Yeah, you're good, bro. Family doctor works too. If I ask them the day off because I'm feeling sick, they will ask me to get a certificate from my GP. Oh. Okay. That's rough, yeah. Back in New Zealand, they would only ask me that if I'd been away more than 3 days. And when I quit my last job, they didn't bother with it because I I had COVID on my last, like, week of work. It's been like this for 2 months. Oof. That is rough, my friend. Did the, well, at least in New Zealand, if that happens, they give you a recommendation of who to go to if they retire or if they, like, close their practice. Did they do that for you, bro, or no? Give me a quick minute, chat.
and we say bye-bye.
Okay. Hi, chat. I am back. Unfortunately, though, that is gonna be it for tonight. I know that it was a little bit, earlier than what we normally end stream, but, you see, I need a shower. So, I gotta go. Repeatable, it was good to see you just before I ended stream, though. You guys be good. I hope things go good. Oh, you gone back to work, buddy? Hell yeah. You have fun, okay, Tom? The exception is for emergency things. It's not being too much anything. It's just been bad enough that finding out time if anything must be developed. The exception for emergency things need rabies treatment, so I was able to take 2 days off. So maybe you should try getting bit by an animal. JK, don't do that. The dose is based on weights and 100 grade was 5 cc or so cubic centimeters isn't that much until it is. Anyway, you guys be good. We're gonna find someone to raid. We are gonna raid Killer Bee. Alright, chat? If you could give him some love, I would really appreciate it. He is doing Dark Souls 2 Soul level 1 run. He's a good dude. And yeah. Hopefully we can get some more coding streams as well. I really enjoyed that today. Thank you for being here. Jim, Nightbot, Kate, Eno, Razor, Yo, Razor was here? Buzz, Panda, Shady, and Theris. No, Irish. Sorry, my brain can't even. Repeatable. Buzz. And Loco. You guys be good. Kick butts, take names. YouTube chat. Bye 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 bye. Be good. Kick chat. Bye 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 bye. Bye 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 bye. Bye. If you've been talking in the YouTube chat, sometimes I don't get to see it because YouTube's weird and it didn't update for me at all. So if you were there, Johnny, bye buddy.